Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, Atlas Thugged, aka White Boy D Voice, aka another racially ambiguous Groiper, and I'm here to tell you that Jesus loves you and Christ is King. Unfortunately, alongside some pretty terrible things, but not today though. Today I'm pretty excited. You might have seen it already if you've been paying attention to the timeline, but it has so far dropped. Yes, it has dropped behind a paywall, actually. So what we're going to be using are some of the clips that have been already floating and finding their way onto the timeline to piece some of this together. Major shout out to Greg the Groiper, who actually is going to be posting it in 3 parts. So the first part he has already uploaded. So the first 30 some minutes of the interview has been posted by Greg the Groiper. We're going to be reacting to that and then hoping we can make it through all 3 of these before Greg the Groiper gets banned on X. So that is going to be the goal, the hope. So we'll see what happens with that. As far as I understand, we'll throw this out there at the beginning. From what I understand, it is on Channel 5's Andrew Callahan, I think is his name. It is on his Patreon. It is still behind a paywall for $5 if you want to see it uninterrupted, uncommentated, for those who may be interested in that. I, however, would not be in the camp of people willing to pay $5 for that idiot's content. Anyways, though, we are here. We found a way. We are the cheap ones here. But shout out to Greg the Groiper. We're going to go ahead and get this started here. So we flip this over here, not the live stream, but the actual clip here. So forgive me, let me get some of this stuff out of the way. I'm kind of, I'm ahead of schedule, by the way. Forgive me, sorry. I'm way ahead of schedule, actually. Typically, I don't stream until like 6, 7 o'clock or so, but this hit the internet and I said, we just have to do it. So I scrapped everything I was going to end up doing, and so we are actually going to be doing this here. Hopefully the power chat links up here soon. If not, we'll figure it out. Anyways, let's get started. Here it is. Let me pull it back. Without further ado, let's just get into it. And let me know if any sound needs changed or anything, but it should be okay.
We can get there. We can get there. Okay.
So I guess like the kind of first question that I had whenever I caught wind that you wanted to do an interview like this is, you know, why now? What made you want to sit down for this kind of interview?
Well, I think it's an interesting conversation to have all of us here. And, you know, I think it's a moment in our country when there's a lot of realignment. You know, I think that people recognize, especially in the past couple of years, I'm like a non-conventional critic, maybe, of what's happening. And so I think it'll be an interesting, productive conversation. I think it'll be different.
But I mean, specifically, because we kind of share a publicist, I heard that you wanted to kind of... Okay. we have a publicist that you hit up, and you said that you wanted to talk to someone who would give you kind of a fair shot to like clear up some things and maybe some misconceptions about you and the things you believe.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think that, you know, I'm somebody who, I think like you, actually, maybe we have this in common, is kind of pigeonholed in a certain way for things that we've done in the past or things that we've said.
Yeah, I'm a crackhead.
But I'm racist, right?
I got pigeonholed there. Mine is true, yeah.
Yeah, well, mine's a little true.
That's where we got the thumbnail idea from.
But yeah, so I think it'd be good to clear up some of the misrepresentations and put out something accurate.
So what do you think is the most misrepresented thing about you?
Well, I think really the whole image everybody has about me. You know, when you mentioned me, I think on a recent show, you said you want to ask me, why are you a Nazi?
Yeah.
And that's how everybody knows me. Everybody thinks of me as a white supremacist Nazi, and I don't think that's really true at all. I think that we definitely have different values. I mean, you're more from the left, I'm more from the right, but I don't think I'm a hater. I'm not a hateful person.
So what's the thing about, I guess, traditional Nazism that you think you disagree with the most?
Well, it's a non-Christian ideology. So, I mean, look, I believe that race is real, as the Nazis did, but I don't think it utterly defines a person. As a Christian, I think we're all created beings. I do believe there's such a thing as a universal human community. And so I think it's a cruel ideology. I've said this on my show, by the way, but I mean, that would maybe be the fundamental.
Did you always feel that way?
I'm a little thrown off by all these like backroom shots they keep doing. It's really weird. They keep doing like these weird. I mean, it looks like that's like the backroom aesthetic, right? This old retro VHS. It's throwing me off a little bit.
Always, yeah, absolutely.
So even whenever you were younger and stuff.
I did, but you know, you got to recognize times have changed. 10 years ago, we had a totally different political world. The regulation and policing of speech, you know, what you would call wokeness, I think was at an all-time high when I got started as a very young man.
What you would call wokeness?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I think, I mean, would you not say there were some
him.
excesses maybe in those days?
Yeah, in those days, I wasn't doing too well, so I wasn't paying much attention. Anyway, I would love to hear, and I'm not asking you to like retract everything that you've ever said and all, you know, or anything, but I said that I would love to talk to you because number one, I told you this, is that I think you're really smart.
Thank you for the 5 gifted AI World Champion. I appreciate it. Clay Trip, Enigma, JETX, Kara Quinquana, or whatever that is, Abdor9210. Appreciate you for the 5 gifted memberships. I appreciate that greatly, brother. Thank you very much.
And I think that with that comes in a real responsibility. And you have an audience. And I have a friend whose son is my daughter's age, you know, maybe 28, you know, your age. And he's really smart, and he is a big fan of yours. And so by virtue of the relationship, I got to learn what it is that why he is a fan of yours. And none of it has to do with, I would hope you agree, like really egregious things that you've said in the past about the Holocaust or about, you know, and I don't even know, I think I've heard you since kind of rescind a lot of that. But what he agrees with is kind of the anger about the situation that particularly your generation finds yourself in. I know that to be real. And I think that there, you know, maybe my reasons for recognizing that anger as being legitimate and my targets are different than yours. I just wanted to hear from you. When you say you were canceled by the right in 2016.
Yes.
I almost felt like in preparing to meet you now, is that your reaction to that was to just dig deeper and deeper into kind of the outsider, kind of radical, say anything for the purpose of generating, you know, the attention to build an audience. Is that true? And it's not an accusation. I really mean it. I want this to be a conversation as much as possible.
I mean, there's certainly some truth to that, but I think that might be overstating it a little.
I mean, I do think it was a very intentional choice for them to use these camera angles. I don't know if there's any other ulterior motive for using it. I will say it seemingly is almost like pointing and painting Nick a little bit in like a bad light almost, like making him look rough on the up closes. But maybe they just watched the back rooms before they did this interview and they're like, I really like that. I'm going to replicate it. Who knows?
Because I really got canceled by the right and the left.
Yeah.
And back in those days in 2017, you had these far left journalists at Huffington Post, Right Wing Watch, ADL, SPLC. And I really believe they were on a mission to find extremist rhetoric, the white nationalist, neo-Nazi boogeyman, all that kind of stuff. And they would look at someone like myself, 18, and if I was being serious or joking, things taken out of context, they would clip it, post it, and they wanted me to be the villain. And I think they wanted a lot of people to be the villain. And I think the left, in a way, kind of created this climate where I think they pushed a lot of people farther to the right.
No, by the way, that very well may be true, but you gave them a lot of ammunition.
That's true.
You know, I mean, I hope that some of those things that you said in the past are not things that you believed in and that are you meant just to engender like a really radical kind of response. I mean, is that true or no?
Well, you know, again, I think that back in those days, you could not say anything. In 2017, 2018, cancel culture was so in overdrive. Any joke, any edgelording, anything like that, they would, first of all, there's no sense of humor.
I'm so old. I don't even, what's
okay, well, to break it down for you, so the dawn of
I don't know, actually. I'm assuming that they did this in a hotel room. Like, I mean, that's obviously the aesthetic here, the effect. So I don't know if it was a studio set up like this or if, like, they literally did go to, like, a conference-sized room, hotel room to run the interview in. It's kind of curious.
Wokeness, as it's known today, I think was in like the post-Trump
It's different
era.
at least.
After Trump won the election in 2016, there was a big movement to deplatform and kind of push away those who, I guess the left feel like had galvanized them into the presidency. So there was this big idea that if you push people off mainstream social media platforms, they would go away. Now we know through Trump's re-election, that's not even true. But at the time, that was the mantra. Problematic viewpoints needed to be silenced, tucked away somewhere, and they would just sort of die in isolation. So I think that was the climate where you first got started, 2017. That time period was like crucial for getting people off mainstream platforms. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I would say that you got to get into the psychology of those days. It felt like anybody that wasn't on board with the most progressive agenda had no options. There was just no alternative. It was going to be progressive, liberal, feminist, BLM, all that kind of stuff. And if you were to the right of John McCain, you're no platformed. Censored, banned from all the platforms, you're fired from your job, you're ostracized socially. And I think what happened really in 2021 when Trump got banned from the platforms is it felt like 70 million people got canceled. 70 million people that voted for Trump, or 60, 70 million people, we were all felt like, oh, so if Trump is out of politics and we're all banned from the platforms, then how is there any redress for our grievances? Do we just have to shut up and get with the program and we're all going to be progressive? And I think that drove people to a far more radical place where people said, well, what really is a solution? We can't talk, we can't express ourselves, we can't participate in the process or run for office. And I was one of the people saying that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to drive people to extremism. If you don't talk, if people don't feel like they have a seat at the table and enfranchisement, I think then they start exploring options outside the system, outside of the political process, the democratic process. So I think it's self-inflicted in many ways.
So you feel like after the mass deplatforming in 2021, whenever people on the right got pushed to platforms like Parler, Gab, Rumble, etc., the lack of discourse and like the political singularity of those platforms created more extremism?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because look, you take Trump off of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and I predicted this in 21. I said, watch, you're going to see alternative social media rise because some venture capitalists are going to see there's a huge market of 70 million people that are going to follow Trump because Trump is no platformed. And that's exactly what happened. Rumble blew up, Elon bought Twitter, and what happened when you had total free speech on these platforms? Well, Twitter now resembles 4chan. And now, there's no gatekeepers. And I think it did push people in a radical direction. And honestly, people are even blowing past me. Now there's like mainstream normie types that are even blowing past me in terms of how radical they are. People start saying things like, there's no political solution, there's going to be a civil war, we need a revolution.
And a lot of this is also married to Charlie Kirk, the conspiracies that are always blending in with that too. And one of the best points I think he made recently on this was the fact that if it goes so far, too far, you're going to have people who are in the middle, the normies, and just these center-left types that are going to want to maybe bring back censorship or perhaps want to pump the brakes a little bit on like the things they're seeing on X. And obviously, if you've been on the timeline, the Hitler edits, but even some less political stuff like the gory things that you can see on there too. I think naturally people are going to have a disposition to want to see less of it.
I think that's because the message from the left was you're crushed. You have no options. You can't win. There's no alternative. Trump is going to be indicted and charged and can't run. You can't be on Twitter. You can't have a job. And so people started to say, okay, well, we still exist. We're still here. We still have these concerns. What do we do now? And then people start to say, well, we need a revolution. And I'm one of the only people saying, no, we should still engage in the process and talk with each other. And it's not all one-sided. I think there's problems on the left and the right, but I certainly think it takes two to tango.
Okay, so we agree. I think that there are problems on the left and the right, and I don't disagree with some of the things that you just said. I guess I just came to a different conclusion that there are some things that people should be deplatformed for. Not that they can't say it where they want to say it, but I think that it's a right of anybody.
Okay, top three things. What do you think?
There's a difference between being able to say that you're proud of your white heritage and also being just flat out racist. I think that there's a difference between saying you're proud of your Christian heritage and the white culture from what you come from and Nazis, or that you adopt the Nazism as a legitimate ideology. I think that there's a difference between saying that you disagree with the United States policy as it relates to Israel and saying that the Holocaust didn't exist. Those would be top three things in my mind. I know that you believe that some people took you out of context, and I do agree. Look, on both the right and the left, there are these gatekeepers, 100%. And look at me, the mainstream press just destroyed me for 7 years without any real kind of reflection about what they were doing. I do think that, you know.
And even with as much as the right wing talked about Hunter Biden, it's like, and he's not even anything close to like Fauci by any means, but where'd all that energy go to like wanting to put him in prison or seeing his connections with Burisma explored? We never got any of that. And no, the highest concurrence on this channel is like 771 when I did the Dinesh D'Souza debate.
Some of those things are legitimate reasons to say, we don't want you on our, on our commercial platform. Would you agree with that? I mean, you just said, for instance, people calling for a like an armed revolution, like people calling for actual violence. You're opposed to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm against violence,
Yeah.
and I do think those are one of the legitimate things that should be taken from the platform. You know, there's a lot of the stuff on social media I don't agree with, but again, you know, what started to happen is there was this like editorial censorship where certain ideas were banned, and they just, it was such a broad brush and also totally opaque and ad hoc. You'd be on YouTube, like I was, for example, they banned me for life and didn't even give me a reason. Not a specific quote, not a specific infraction. And so you don't know what the rules are, you don't know what the process is, they just take you down. And especially now, when everything is digital, that's not just the social platforms, it's the other ones like Uber, Airbnb, whatever. It feels like you're being denied almost something like a civil right, because the social platforms are the modern public square. Increasingly with Uber, Airbnb, the banking apps, you can't live your life without the tech platforms. And it felt like if you just simply had the wrong opinions or you were the wrong kind of person, you were being deprived of like a basic civil right or being able to participate in society. So
it was obviously extreme, and many people forget how bad it was, like during the COVID era and like pre-COVID, like at the peak of wokeness, like just how excessively bad it was if you were to get taken off the platform. And kind of like how phones operate now too. It's like, if you don't have access to like an iPhone or a touchscreen that has all like the different capacities to it, your ability to get a job or be counted on or be seen as dependable is just, it goes down the roof. Now, interviewers might not even say that to you, but it just kind of goes like without saying that you need to be able to have all the faculties, all the capacities to be able to function like a regular human being.
You know, and I think maybe that's an area of collaboration where we recognize maybe it is a civil right to use the digital platforms, but here are the rules. Here's what you can say, here's what you can't say, here's the process. Maybe there's a reconciliation mechanism, but I mean, the censorship was just out of control. I don't think anyone disagrees there's a reasonable limit, though.
Yeah, no, I guess what I'm saying is that I don't see that as a result of left-wing or right-wing ideology. I view that kind of level of deplatforming. Look, I was debanked. I was debanked before I was ever even charged with anything. I lost every bank account. It took me, 9 months once they, the Trump administration, said that they were starting an investigation into me to be able to actually get a bank account again. And I don't want to tell you the bank because tomorrow they may debank me again. But my point is that those people are incredibly identifiable. I've been talking and going around and I say things like, I don't think we are nearly as divided as they're telling us we are. Because I do believe that there are an identifiable group of people that are responsible for an enormous amount of the discord and division.
And this is one of the weakest points I think that most people who want to sit in the center and bring together too is like the reason like I'm mad at like say whether it's black person or a trans person or whatever it may be, whatever the social ill is not because like I saw Trump yelling about it on the screen and I was like, you are right, like I'm mad about that. It's like, no, it's like when I was at the gas station and I can't even leave the gas station without being accosted by like 3 Somalian immigrants. Like that's what pissed me off. Or when I go down the street and I can't make it like, 2 miles without seeing some kind of pride parade-esque thing, or when I walk into Starbucks, I'm being berated by a bunch of pink-haired, liberals or septum rings. It's like, it's not, I don't need to be told these things to be mad at them. Like I'm already mad at them. The reality was at the beginning, at the very initial onset of Trump was he actually spoke to some of these issues before it obviously all got packed in.
Because they make money off of it. I think that these social media companies that are controlled by 3, 4, 5, individuals have made it clear that they only care about one thing. They only care about how much money they can produce for themselves and, the people that hold stocks in their company. Even to the degree where we know for certain that they're driving teenage girls to the highest levels of suicide by a factor, like exponential factors, directly related to the content that they're being pushed, and they won't do anything about it.
Right.
And so, to the same degree, I think they, a lot of what you call wokeness was maybe an illegitimate, but a financial decision based on a lot of these
Corporate psyop, maybe.
Corporate psyop.
Thank you.
I mean, by the way, exactly.
I just wanted to back up real quick. So
That was a bunch of nonsense. Corporate psyop. More so like they see where the winds are blowing, right? Fair weather friends, like a lot of corporates, a lot of businesses. You could even see this like leading up to when Donald Trump was elected, where many businesses all of a sudden were like shedding the wokeness. And the reason being was because they wanted to be seen in the good graces of who they were putting their money on, of who was going to be the coming in party. Which party is now going to be taking the reins? So if Donald's Trump, well, now we can be a bit more outspoken about how we feel about things. As in when it's with the left, it's like it's the black square, it's the rainbow during Pride Month. And you can't look at these companies as if they have their actual own beliefs. They're just trying to do what they can, obviously, to shield themselves from cancellation and make the most money possible.
Talked about certain people going too far. About 2.5 months ago, I visited a whites-only community in Hardy, Arkansas. And I don't know why, I guess coming from like a more like left-wing place, I'm from Seattle, I kind of assumed there was like a united front on the right for some reason. So I'm out there, I'm chilling with these dudes, they're like sword fighting, having barbecue.
The chat's broken, by the way. I don't know what's
I
wrong
had a
with
hard
it.
time connecting with them because I don't agree with them, but it's all good. I was having fun for a couple days. And then like right as I was there, I guess you had hit them up on X or something and said like, hey, I don't want to associate with you guys. What happened there?
Well, that was really more of a personal disagreement with the guy that founded it.
Yeah.
But I do think it's an interesting project, and it's interesting that got so much pushback, this whites-only community, because you know what? If you go to a lot of these different neighborhoods in major cities, there are ethnic enclaves, and it's not like there's an explicit rule that you have to be a certain ethnicity, but we all know in Chicago and New York and LA, you got certain neighborhoods where it is 80, 90% one ethnicity.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of white people that say we kind of want something similar. I don't think there's anything.
But Nick, what is this fucking...
Okay, let's back up. If you want to talk
What's
about
funny?
the histories of New York and Chicago, I feel like that was also a conscious decision that was made. Like
I tell you where it's a blacks only. It's in Cabrini Green, where Mayor Daley made everybody that was black live in the Cabrini Green. I mean, it's not. That wasn't by choice. It's not by choice that these ethnic enclaves are 80 or 90%, whatever that ethnicity is. It's because that's the only place in which they had an opportunity to live unbothered, or where they were told that they had to live because of the historical fact that they could not move into other neighborhoods. You could not move into parts of South Chicago without, being stoned.
Right.
Literally, right?
Yeah.
Some of that, there's some of that is true, but like it's very minimal in that sense. Like it's to say that like people inside their tribes don't want to be around people of their own tribes, or like that's not a naturally occurring thing. It's just such a weak argument. It's like they're enclaves because both by proxy of what they would prefer, and also because anyone else that's not a part of that group, like if you're an Asian man or you're a Chinese guy, you want to be around other Chinese people. White people are the same way, Vietnamese, you could go down the line. To act as if there's less of the natural element to that and more that it's all forced on people. It's just, that's obviously insane.
So, like so it's not as if those ethnic enclaves are there by choice. And so that
also ethnic enclaves do exist for like specific variations of different Europeans. Like there is like places that are chocolate. Like South Philly is full of Italians.
But there's Little Italy and there's Little Korea.
So I
and
think
there's
the
Little
issue,
Japan.
what I always like, what confused me the most about the whites only community is like there's just so many different kinds of white people in America. So like to establish a unified white culture with a place so diverse and full of like different regional flavors just kind of felt confusing to me, because that could mean a different thing depending on what part of the country or what European enclave you originated from. Like we're Irish people from the Philly area. Can you compare that to like surfers in San Diego, or even like Italian Americans in Staten Island? I don't know. Everything just feels so different. So when I got there, I was trying
Surfers
to
in San
identify
Diego.
what they meant by white culture. It wasn't really based on shared like cultural practices, but more the exclusion of people who weren't white. So they weren't like stoked on being European necessarily. They were more just like, oh, we're here because those people aren't here. So it just kind of felt more negative than constructive.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not really involved with that project in particular, but I think that, look, you talk about the anger that's out there and the frustration. And I think part of the frustration, let's be honest, is that white people do feel like we are being boxed out in major cities in the country. And it feels like, look, there's a little Haiti and there's various ethnic enclaves where you get that local culture and they do their, cultural festivals and that sort of thing. And white people feel like they're being pushed out and they want a space where things are familiar.
Do you feel the same way about the Italian festival that happens in every city?
Well, here's a good example.
Or St. Patrick's Day?
Well, there's no Irish neighborhood in Chicago. Little Italy.
There is.
I mean, there's some remnant in Bridgeport.
Yeah.
And
It's important to note that, and I'm not trying to get into a shouting match here, but as a family who did leave Philadelphia in the 60s because of black migration from the South after the Civil Rights Act was passed, there was a sort of mass flight of white people into the suburbs, and that kind of led to a homogenization of different cultures because they rushed so fast to build these identical strip mall suburbs that it was very hard to maintain cultural bonds that made
they're being very polite to each other.
Neighborhoods unique around the 1950s and before. So I feel like the mass suburbanization is also a big factor that led to those cultural bonds breaking.
yeah, but why did that happen?
This guy, very unfortunate face. Let me say that. I'm not very familiar with who this person is, unfortunately. But very unfortunate face. You see Ian Carroll, but then you see this guy. It's like Ian Carroll got the good ending.
I mean, a lot of the suburbanization is because of the race riots in the 1960s. People moved out because of the violence. My grandfather was in the National Guard in Chicago when, after MLK got assassinated, the whole West Side burned to the ground. And people didn't want to be around that anymore.
Why were there riots?
Yeah, MLK Jr. was assassinated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so does that justify burning down the city?
No, I didn't say it justifies it, but it sure justifies an enormous amount of the anger, the same kind of anger that you feel about being left out, the same kind of anger that you're expressing right now about the idea that you're culturally irrelevant, that you don't have a place in society. Imagine if you were a 26-year-old black man in 1968 and saw your hero be assassinated.
Oh, I saw Trump get shot in the ear and...
Did he?
And I saw Charlie Kirk get shot, and I didn't see any cities get burned down. It's funny
I think it's a very, very, very different thing. I think
How's that different? Charlie Kirk got shot in the neck.
Yeah.
And liberals celebrated all over social media by Tyler Robinson.
Yeah. Who is what? Who
is some liberal guy.
He is? Mm-hmm. But
he's got a transgender boyfriend.
Does that make him liberal? Because he's trans.
Is Hunter Biden the only man on earth who doesn't know who Tyler Robinson is, or has at least a basic, gist of what he was about? That's kind of funny. I find that hard to believe, though.
Gender because he's gay?
So. Well, because he's got a transgender boyfriend, yeah, I think so.
That makes him liberal.
I think he was liberal, yeah.
Okay, well, he didn't come from a liberal family.
I mean, to be fair,
from a liberal
right-wingers are a little sus nowadays.
A liberal background. He's not a minority. He was a Mormon, correct? Mm-hmm. And grew up in a Mormon household, and he went to a largely Mormon college, and he ended up committing an act of violence, according to the FBI and the authorities in Utah that charged him. How does that in any way compare to what we're talking about? I'm not justifying the violence that occurred after the death of Martin Luther King, but you're saying that person, this Tyler, whoever his name is was as disenfranchised as the African American community in 1968 in inner cities?
Well, the question is who we want to live around. And in the 1960s, the West Side burns down. We don't want to live around that. We don't want to live around a city that's burning down.
That's not when the white flight happened.
It is. It was a big response to it. Absolutely.
100% not.
Absolutely.
You make these historical connections that don't exist.
That is a good question. Who would be more disenfranchised? I would wager it's probably the same rate. And how would you even measure that as well? I mean, do we need to start burning cities down? Would that be indicative of we're now equally disenfranchised?
Part of it was potentially, but before that, what Mayor Daley did is made Chicago the most segregated city in the entire United States, other than Boston. When you would come from the South to Chicago, African Americans from the South, blacks in the South coming to Chicago would say that Chicago was twice the level of segregation and racism that occurred in the South. And so it wasn't as if you're coming into a situation in which you're feeling in any way enfranchised by the community and the situation that you're in. And as many people left simply because of the idea that someone was black moving into their neighborhood as the violence that occurred after the assassination of Martin Luther King.
I agree, Tix.
The numbers actually, pre-1968, when King was shot, you had more people leave the city because of the desegregation, because of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, than you did after the riots.
I think that's just not true. I think that the race riots were a huge driver of white flight to the suburbs. I think it's just dishonest to say that's not the case.
Okay, so what's your point about all of this?
Well, we're talking about where people want to live.
Yeah, I know. So, like, what in 2026?
Well, how about in 2020 when Minneapolis burned to the ground, or how about in the summer of 2020 in Chicago?
Minneapolis didn't burn to the ground.
It didn't?
No. I mean, there were
BLM
parts
didn't
of it,
destroy
but-
dozens
Yeah.
of structures?
If you guys need a physical witness to what happened in Minneapolis, there were many structures that burned to the ground. Not the city, but there was, I would say, between 40 to 50 buildings off of Lake Street in the south side that did burn to the ground. But
What a semantic argument to make too. Like, Minneapolis is still around. It's like, yeah, but obviously that's not the point he's making. The point he's making is that it was like mass destruction, mass chaos. I mean, what was it? What was the overall insurance total? Like in the annual, like overall, it was like in the trillions of damage caused. At least that's what was in the insurance liability. It's like, that didn't happen. It's just such a stupid thing to say.
most of the city was intact, but it was quite an intense situation.
People don't want to live around that. People don't want to live around that. You know, in Chicago, it rolled on into the summer, and it wasn't, you know, let's say, the anger of the oppressed and the disenfranchised.
So
They were looting. They were looting and
Who's they?
carjacking. The criminals,
Yeah. Who are?
mostly black.
Nick, you know,
Is that not true?
yeah, maybe, Nick. I don't know. I just don't.
Like, he's getting mad at it. Like, you can't get mad at like a objective reality. Like, please. It's weird that that's the response even too. It's like, you know, not trying to explain it away, but like just getting mad at it. And it's like, you know, but again, more left-wing kind of trope there.
I don't know why you use the platform that you have to make that your target. So are you saying that the problem with the 26-year-old white kid living in suburbia outside of Chicago and his feeling of being disenfranchised is because there was looting and rioting in Minneapolis by black people, and it's black people that are doing it?
Yeah, it's part of it.
I mean, the problem with
Are you
Austin
really?
Metcalf was that he got stabbed in the neck at a track meet. And the problem with our city in Chicago is that the Magnificent Mile is gone. Water Tower Place is gone because of all the crime.
Nick, and the problem with an entire generation of African Americans is that they've been getting killed by cops for decades.
That's
What are
just
you
not
talking
true.
about, Nick?
And that's just completely not true. Like, not even close to being true, dude. Like, what was the statistic? It was something like, it was like less than 31 black males or black people overall were killed by, or it was like armless or unarmed black males. It was like less than like 30 in like the year of like 2021 or something. And they act like it's in the thousands. They do these polls where they survey black communities and they go, how many black, unarmed black people do you think have been killed this year? Or, you know, were killed last year? And they say at least 10,000, at least 10,000, at least in the thousands. And it's like, it's not even close to that. And a lot of that is obviously because of the propaganda and indoctrination that propagates that entire narrative.
Because they commit crime. And listen, it's not.
Nick.
Yeah, armless. I couldn't think.
It's not true. Are
It
you saying
is.
that police brutality as it relates and racism in the police force, in the way in which police treat African Americans?
6 million.
You could grow up here like I did between Wilmington and Philadelphia. And if you were a black dentist and you lived in Wilmington and you commuted to Philadelphia, the chances of you being pulled over by a state trooper, either Delaware or in Pennsylvania, are about 50 times that would be if it was a white guy. 50 times. And
We're
so what
talking
you're
about-
trying to tell me is that the problem in America right now is that a 26-year-old white kid who lives in suburban Chicago doesn't feel like he has access because he's been canceled or he's been woke, and the problem is black people.
I didn't say the problem's black people.
Well, you just did, Nick. You just
I said the problem is crime, and we know who's doing the crime in Chicago. The carjackings, shootings, teen takeovers. We know why there's no business on the Mag Mile anymore, and it's because they steal cars, they drive them through windows.
Thank you greatly,
Listen,
Thawball. I
black people are
appreciate
some of
that.
the biggest victims of the black crime. But we're not allowed to talk about it because of the racial
What do you mean
dimension.
you're not allowed to talk about it? We're talking about it right here.
Hey, guys,
you have a platform in which
I think
millions
we're-
of people listen to
I
you,
think-
Nick.
I think-
Millions.
Well,
What?
after Elon had to buy Twitter and open it up. It wasn't like that before. I was banned from everything for many years. So no, you weren't allowed it. You're right. We can talk about it now, but that's only because the good guys
Nick,
won.
you went from being banned on Twitter to being on YouTube to creating
I'm
an
not on
entire show.
YouTube.
I know you're not, but now you have Kick and now you have all of these other things. You have an enormous platform. I want to find common ground of how much of a shithead Donald Trump is. We can get there. Okay. What I don't understand is how you didn't recognize that in 2016, and how you didn't recognize that in 2020, and how you didn't recognize that in 2024. Because Donald Trump Because Donald Trump hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump hasn't changed at all. Donald Trump has been Donald Trump since he came out of the womb of a woman that was an immigrant to this country. And so what I want to know, though, is that I don't know how we get past this idea that the biggest problem that you have with your personal situation and how you extrapolate that to the situation of other white kids that are your age, that feel disenfranchised, that feel left out, that feel they don't have a shot at the American dream, is because of black and brown people, because of Mexicans, because of Venezuelans, because of Haitians, it's always other, Nick, with you, it seems to me. And I've listened to a lot of the stuff. It's always them. We need to build a wall. Where's the wall, Nick? He never built the wall. Why'd you vote for him in 2020? Why'd you vote for him in 2024?
I didn't vote for him in 2020.
Okay. My point being is that whenever you identify your problem as being something that is other, that you can point to, that's a minority, that is a group of people, that's the Jews, before, remember, all of us, it was the Irish Catholics who were committing the crime.
But isn't it always them, though? Like, if we're being real, he's kind of on something here. The easier it is you can accept that, the easier we can get to having some honest conversation.
Who weren't allowed into bars, who weren't allowed into, because you know why? Because they were dirty, poor, non-Europeans. They were Irish. Every time it's wrong. Every time history has proven that to be wrong in the United States of America. Every time. Inclusion has been our greatest strength. Diversity has been our greatest strength. And I hear you talk about this idea of white culture. What fucking white culture?
Yeah, Hunter Biden's perfect Democrat.
What
Shakespeare, Dante, Mozart. We're in Philadelphia, the founding fathers.
Yeah.
That's your white culture.
How about the Count of Monte Cristo? Would you consider that part of our white culture?
Sure.
Okay. Well, it was written by a black man in France in the 1700s.
In a milieu of European civilization.
So what?
You're picking out one example. It really is.
I'm not just picking out one example.
It really is.
Nick.
Listen.
Nick, I'm not. I really am not.
Hey, guys, I think we're reaching what's called a rock in a hard place. Let's talk about it.
It's the best one. The dark one.
Let me respond to this because you're telling me I'm always blaming the other.
No, Nick, for real. Here's the thing, is that the way that you talk and throw out these historical facts, which, by the way, aren't fucking facts. Okay?
Which ones aren't facts?
As it relates to the Civil Rights Movement in 1968, and the reason why we're out in the problem that we're in is because the Civil Rights Act passed in 1964. Dr. Martin Luther King was killed and shot by a white racist, white supremacist in 1968 on a balcony of a motel. That's the root of our trouble, because an entire people that have been disenfranchised and enslaved for over 400 years.
We're sick of hearing about that, though. It's 2026.
You may be sick of hearing about it, but you know what? They aren't. And
Dude, this is actually kind of sad. Like, Hunter Biden's worldview, like, of all we've established so far, is his worldview is based heavily in the civil rights era. It's like we have yet to move away from this.
I'll tell you what, Nick.
Get
here's the
over
other
it.
thing.
Get over it. It's America.
But Nick, you keep saying stuff like that. Okay, without having to say it like that. And
that's not how it started, though.
This is a legitimate argument, but it's, Nick.
Guys, Nick, Hunter, what do you guys make of the concept of community collapse? Have you guys heard of this?
No.
So it's got nothing to do with race, got nothing to do with money, but this is kind of a crazy stat. So in 2019, before COVID, 76% of Americans said they were a part of an in-person community that gave them some kind of value. After COVID, and this year, it was 19%. So I think that politics and race aside, one of the biggest issues is the collapse of social bonds, third spaces, communities, in-person engagement, which comes with loneliness, more time online, and more division. I understand that. I feel like you guys aren't going to agree. I want to talk about what you guys think can be done on an individual and community level to stop people from hating each other and to create more belonging and engagement.
Well, number one, I think this.
Segregation. Deportations and segregation. I'll take either or both at the same time. I'm cool with it.
Okay, for real.
Podcasting.
No, not podcasting. This discussion. For me to be able to sit down with someone who I so vehemently disagree with and find some kind of common ground.
But I don't want to look. Guy at home who's watching this on his phone, just thinking, I wish I could go outside, but I don't know anyone.
Okay, well, here's what I'm talking about. It's all about connection. It is all about actually connecting with people. And I'm not talking about digitally connecting with people anonymously online. I'm talking talking about actually going out and connecting with people. And I don't have an answer to that. I don't any of us. We are in a look, man. I just think that you are targeting the wrong problem, Nick. I think that our biggest problem right now doesn't have to do with this cultural divide or racial divide or religious divide or the idea that America is becoming less white or culturally relevant anymore. I think our biggest problem is literally an oligarchy that is inflaming every single division that we have. And by the way, and they're out for you, man, just as much as anybody else.
Well, and I agree.
So those platforms that we talk about that you're not allowed to be on because Elon's out on the platform. Elon doesn't give a shit about anything other than one thing: money.
Real quick.
Money, and his money.
I don't necessarily even agree with that.
Okay, well, you may not agree with that because you don't want to piss off Elon Musk.
That's not, Elon doesn't even like me, but I just disagree.
You're talking about the oligarchy, right? Like these billionaires, right?
Yeah.
Like the goal of corporate capture of these industries is community collapse. They are trying to engineer things to make it antisocial. They want to eliminate every single small business. They want to make everyone a single person shopper, no carpooling, like to be a lonely consumer who only buys things for themselves online and doesn't talk to anyone in real life. That's what they want in real life. Like all this data center shit, like everything they're doing is in a way trying to break up in-person engagement. And I feel like for
Bro, I literally the other day at the grocery store, I think I was at Giant Eagle. I had a woman, like 5'3" woman, like shoulder check me hard as hell, and the reason being she was staring at her phone, like not even looking where she was going. Like, yeah, social bombs are dying from diversity largely, but then also all the other technological stuff too. Both of those kind of coming in at the same time.
you guys might be hard to answer because both of you guys are what they call like controversial public figures. Like there's places that you, like in 2018, if you were to go to a dive bar in, let's say, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, you would have been in danger. You know what I mean? At that time. For you were in danger physically in a left-wing city. It's just the truth. So I feel like you guys have been deprived of the ability to have normal lives. You especially, you know, but I mean you in general, but I feel like, you know, your controversies came a little bit later in life. For you, I feel like you haven't even been able to grow up as a normal person. Is that accurate to say?
That's true. Well, and in terms of, you know, building community back and everything like that, you know, the data says that really the loss of society is the fact that we don't encounter people anymore. For example, on your way to work or, you know, in ways that are unexpected. People wake up in their house, which is separate from everybody else. They get in their car by themselves, drive to work by themselves, you know, and then they meet with their colleagues and everything, but then they go right home, go home, have a beer, watch Netflix until they go to bed. Next day starts all over again. And
I'm guilty of this too. Like, if I see someone approach me, like even if I'm out and about, like I'm like, my instinct is, my natural reaction is like I can't be bothered. Not all the time, but I do catch myself being like that. I'm trying to get something done.
And so, you know, I think it has a lot to do with maybe how we structure the cities. I think, honestly, a big part of it, there's like this abundance mindset with liberals. Liberals want to have prosperity and everything like that. How can you have that when the cities are not safe? I think that one of the ways, for example, if you want to have those encounters that are unplanned or spontaneous, they're going to happen maybe on the subway, on the bus, on your way to work. People don't want to ride the subway anymore. People don't want to ride the bus. They don't feel like it's safe.
If you look at the data, like right now, 2026, I think 2025 had the lowest homicide rate of any year in America for like the past 40 years. I feel like if you compare data from the 90s, like the cities, I get what you're saying, but the cities I have noticed are a lot safer. They're also, you know, becoming more expensive as well.
It's a really, you're absolutely right. It's really,
what did happen to the laptop?
Nick, is impossible to refute, right?
Okay, so that's part one. This is part one. We're going to go to Greg the Groiper for part two. Give me a second. It looks like he just posted part two here. I don't see part three, but we do have part two. Another 30 minutes here to rip this. And give me 1 second to see if I can adjust something on the stream side of the aisle with the chat, but I don't know if it's going to work. I doubt it will work. So I'm not going to take too much of your time away. We're going to go right back to it. Okay, here is part two. Let's keep it rolling.
Everybody has an experience with violence or witnessing a crime, or whether it's just in their local newspaper or not, is that I don't think that that is in any way limited to only urban environments. I take the top 10 poorest red states in the country, and their crime rates are 10 times what many urban centers are.
So you'd be comparing like West Virginia, coal country, disenfranchised to like an urban neighborhood.
Yeah, in terms of per capita crime, in terms of per capita murder, in terms of per capita child sexual abuse, yeah. I think the things that people really care about, things like that, is their own personal safety.
Yeah.
It is not limited to African American urban or Latino American urban environments. It's not. It exists. Carjackings do happen, but you know where they happen? They happen in Biloxi, Mississippi, just as much as they happen in Chicago.
I'm skeptical of that.
I mean, I just think the
I did it. Skeptical. It's like, no, like, don't lie to me, dude. Like, don't lie to me and act like there's just as many like homicides and gang shootings in Vermont as there are in Chicago or Los Angeles. Like, that is insane. You have to like intentionally avoid looking at like facts and statistics to even say something like that.
idea of like safety.
Well,
Yeah,
like,
source.
By the way,
I made it up.
The media has overblown the
everybody's going to fact check both of us on this, and but I agree with you. But my point about all of it is that you can always point to a reason, Nick. There's never been a time in which there hasn't been crime in major urban areas where you pack a lot of people in. You're right, though, is that the difference between us feeling like each other were our neighbors and that we can find some common ground is the fact, you can live in existence now by the time you're 56 years old and never really have to leave your house to make a living, you don't go to the community center anymore. And I don't know how to fix that. And I certainly don't know how to fix it in the age of AI.
Right? Because community is like an essential human need, if not the most important thing. Mm-hmm. So when you are deprived of that, you're more likely to look for a radical solution and be like, everything's broken, we need to try something really out there. So you might embrace something more reactionary on left or right to be like, fuck this, we need something new. And I'm not trying to draw this like male loneliness, like incel pipeline that the media tries to do all the time. But do you see a connection there between like people being lonely and having less friends and subcultural choice taking over community value systems or community engagement and people just like driving to the extreme?
100%. I think social dislocation is probably the number one problem of our times, because you look at the young people and you're right, it is one of those essential human needs is to connect and have that sense of familiarity, to be seen, to see and to be seen. And that's something young people don't have. And I think, by the way, you look at the way young people socialize and even the mentality, I think a lot of young people have this absolute drive to go to college. Why? It's an extension of high school. And what do high school and college have in common? It's a community. You're in the quad. You can see and be seen. There's sort of like a status, reputation. You're constantly involved with other people. And I think everybody, young people, look at when they graduate from college like falling off a cliff and now life is over. Because now you just have your job, the gym, and going back home, and that's it. And this is why a lot of young people then want to move to the big cities. Got to go to New York, got to go to Chicago or LA where it's happening. And they want to get a condo or an apartment downtown because they want to go to the bar scene and extend college a little bit longer. And I think that's just not really a sustainable way to have a society. There has to be a way for people to still have that sense of community outside of, let's say, college and high school, even into their adulthood and then into their old age. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest problems going on. And I agree. I think it drives, even to your point about the whites-only community in Arkansas, I think it is driving these, let's call it ghettoization or insulation of people going into these artificial values-based communities. Yeah. Because where are you going to find people? Go online, start spouting about politics, or, even not just for incels and right-wingers, but even on the left. Someone like Tyler Robinson, he's on Discord. He's on Discord with all of the Overwatch players and all the LGBTQ or whatever. And I think that, there's a tendency there where everybody kind of amplifies some of the resentment or feelings there. So I agree, that's a huge driver.
So for you, like back in high school when you were like first kind of starting to use the internet and all that, did you build most of your community in person outside Chicago, or was it mostly online?
When I was in high school or college?
High school.
High school I had real friends in Model UN. That was my favorite thing. So that was.
But you were still creating like some kind of content at that time?
Not in high school, no.
Okay. So you went to BU?
Yes.
Were most of your friends like classmates there? Like when did you start to kind of build your online persona?
Hey, thank you, Donnie.
It wasn't until I left college. So to that point, I had friends in college. And then when I left college and started my show independently, then it was all people online. And everybody I knew was people from my community for the most part.
But your cancellation from mainstream platforms was effectively the same thing as like a community collapse for your personal life, right?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even say it was just a cancellation, but even more just returning home from college.
What do you think would have happened to you, like career-wise and personal life-wise, if you never would have been mainstreamed? I mean, I guess removed from major social media platforms.
Oh, it'd be a lot easier to make friends, let's say, because being banned on Instagram, you might as well be dead. In Generation Z, that's how everybody sees each other, meets each other, talks to each other. So I think I probably have a wider, livelier circle.
Do you feel like you had less friends after that?
No, I'd say it's about the same.
No.
I think when you follow Nick, if as much as like someone like myself, or if you're just a groper in general, you kind of realize and you pick up on the fact that Nick is a bit of a product of obviously being around Chicago. That's just why he kind of has not the typical like red state Republican, like across the board kind of values. There's a good bit of more of this kind of liberal injection, and probably because he is not blank slate, but part of him is probably built in his identity of being this kid from Chicago.
But I mean, you said that you feel like it would have been easier to make friends.
It would have been easy to make more friends, yeah, sure.
So aside from your career, how was your personal and social life affected in those following years?
Well, it's brutal, you know. I mean, because everybody that I knew from high school is on Instagram, on Facebook, and I'm just not on there. It's almost like you're removed from the earth. For Generation Z, I understand for older people, for different generation, people still meet up or stay in touch in other ways. But if you're not online as a young person, you might as well be dead.
Do you think you would have said some of the more extreme things that you did say if you I guess were allowed to remain on the mainstream internet?
Absolutely, yeah.
Looking back, and I'm not trying to get you to take something back necessarily, what's one thing that you said when you were younger where you're like, fuck, I wish I was.
This is just AA meeting for anti-Semitism.
I don't know if I regret what I've said. It's just how you say it.
Yeah, can you think of an example of when you listen back to something and you're like, geez, I wish
Yeah. So I did this rally in 2023 called Fuentes Rally 2, and the one comment I said, we're talking about a spiritual battle between Christians and everybody else, and I said we're in a holy war. I said, and we're going to make them die in a holy war. And the second I said that, I was like, didn't mean to say that. It's an extemporaneous speech. So you don't rehearse it, you just say things. And I was like, didn't mean that, shouldn't have said that. So it's always the how, it's always in the delivery that I...
Nick, I can think of about 4 things that I really wish you would take back right now.
Like what?
The cookies in the oven.
Well, that's a joke.
But it's not, Nick. My wife is Jewish. My son is Jewish.
No, dude, that's crazy.
Don't get mad.
I'm not mad.
Okay,
It's
I know.
The cookie monster joke, the ovens, the 6 million. If you're kind of catching my gist, this is where this is going. This is funny.
But you got to understand how incredibly, whether it's a joke or not, it's a lived experience passed down from generation to generation, whether or not and by the way, not just from the Holocaust, not just from 1939 on, 2,000 years of history, okay? Forget about Israeli politics and Netanyahu, because I think we agree about Bibi Netanyahu. I'm positive we do. And I've listened to you talk about it. But you got to understand, look at me, man.
I see.
It hurts. It hurts.
Dude, this is so pathetic, dude.
When you compare my wife's family to cookies going to an oven, it hurts, and you've got to understand that. And by the way, I'm looking at you, and I believe that you do know that.
See, that's where you lose me. That's where you lose me.
Okay, Nick. Okay, I'm telling you.
Well, listen, are we here to talk, or are you here to lecture me and preach to
you're
me?
right.
Ooh,
Let me listen.
okay.
You're right.
So this is the thing, because, and I think this is a disconnect. I think that the left, and even people on the right, they're losing the young people. Why do people love me? Not in spite of, but because of the outrageous things that I say. Not in spite of, but because I say offensive things. Because I, let's say, drop the N-word on a video or something. Yeah. It's because people are sick of the preachiness, the
Nick.
lecturing.
Okay, I'll listen.
They really are.
But Nick, I disagree. I think that you're appealing to the lowest common denominator of thought. If you're hating on the people that they think are the reason for their suffering, then you must be on their side. I don't think that you believe that about the Holocaust. I think you think the Holocaust did happen. But forget about whether or not you think that it is used politically in a way that is obtuse and wrong. But I think that you do believe that. And I think that you have to. What's your cultural heritage?
I'm Italian, Mexican, and Irish.
Mexican. When did they come in Italian? When did the Mexicans come? When did the Irish come?
Mexicans came turn of the last century.
Yeah.
Italians came in the 1860s. Yeah. Irish came in the early 1900s.
Okay, so maybe you wouldn't care about something that is grossly offensive just on the face of it and think that, oh, why can't people just believe that that's funny? But you got to understand, it's from the perspective of somebody that has that trauma, and I think that there is such a thing as generational trauma, and those stories are passed down generation to generation. When you say something like that, they completely shut off. They can't hear another thing that you're saying about this cultural disconnect, about losing communities, about the feeling of being left out or left behind.
Well, that's just an argument for segregation then. If every group who has all these these just in Hunter Biden's worldview have all these passed down lived experiences, this generational trauma. Well, okay, well, no other group wants to hear about it then. If this group has trauma and this group has trauma and this group has trauma and no one is willing to hear anything that's critical of that or wants less of it, you're just making an argument for segregation. Maybe then they shouldn't be around each other then. Because then how do you stack that up? Who gets to complain the loudest? Who gets to make that pecking order?
World in which there no longer is this sense of community. All the other things that you say, everybody else is left, and what you do pick up. You pick up the ones that hear the dog whistle. You pick up the ones that say, yeah, that's the way that I feel, because it's radical. It's like he's willing to say the thing that nobody else will say in this environment. And then you get, an enormous amount of
crackhead.
but love from that. And I just don't believe that you believe that. I don't believe that you think that it was appropriate for you to say something like that.
It does kind of come across that way a little bit, right? Like, if any of you've lived in the city before, you've probably been around this. But like when the homeless guy, like you give him some money, but then he wants to start talking to you about how he views the world. And it's like, listen, I was just trying to be nice, dog. Now you're pissing me off. But hey, guards, where they just start diatribing. And it's like, dog, you've lived on the street the last 2 years and you've been smoking crack in a hotel with hookers. You have no idea what's going on. Like, don't even attempt to tell me what's happening.
I think you believe that it's appropriate to say women shouldn't vote.
Let's give Nick a second to respond to the first thing.
I know, I talk constantly. That's how I do this.
It's all good.
I apologize.
I get it, and I understand that perspective, and it is offensive. And it is provocative, and that's sort of what makes it funny. I mean, what we would say in our generation is edgelording. We're being edgy. We're being provocative. And I think that it is that kind of overbearing sense for our entire...
Nick, I'm the king of edgelord.
Well, in a certain way.
Let's let Nick explain.
Yeah, I know. I apologize.
It's that overbearingness that my generation's had our entire lives. That's not appropriate. That's not funny. Think of the trauma. That's racist. That's white supremacist. That makes it funny, that makes it different, interesting. And let me grant, by the way, I think that now, and this is maybe a concession towards you, now that my kind of humor has become mainstream and popular, I don't even think that that's funny anymore. People do the edgelording thing. It's become so commonplace and so tired. I don't think it's that funny or impressive. That's a big part of why I kind of moved past it, because 10 years ago, it was treated like sacrilegious. And there's something funny about the fact that you could say a word or make a joke and make people lose their minds and freak out, and it was like an international incident if you said the wrong thing. And
because it's got impact. It has impact. Not that it has any depth to it, but that it has impact. It was almost like a cheat code to get attention. It was like, it wouldn't be the best attention, but it was like it was almost like you could just drop the hard R and then turn around and be like, anyways, now here's what's wrong with flock cameras. It was like, it has impact and it grabs people's attention, although, to some ends beneficial, some ends otherwise.
I think that's what made it tempting, especially for a young person. You want to rebel. You want to be defiant. You want to be a little revolutionary or something. Now, as time has gone on, I think that's become a fad. Everybody does it. It's lost its power. And I think that, by the way, part of why we're getting less of it is because instead of getting the preachy lecture from the left saying that's not appropriate, people just roll their eyes. Now, when an edgy white person says the N-word, people roll their eyes and go, really? That joke again? People hear someone wears a Nazi costume, makes a Holocaust joke. People go, really? That joke again?
Yeah, they don't even get mad at you anymore. They just try to kill you. It's like, it's not even fun anymore. It's like, it was fun when they made it mad. Now they just try to shoot at me at the liquor store.
It's not impressive. It's not funny anymore. We've seen it before. And ironically, that is what makes you get less of it, when you disempower those things by not giving them this over-the-top reaction, pretending like it's some great travesty.
So you think the new counterculture is going to be woke again?
No, I think it's a synthesis.
A synthesis of post-edgelordism and wokeism?
Yes, because I think that wokeism had its excesses. Yeah. Edgelording also has its excesses. Mm-hmm. And I think now we're finding a middle ground between saying the edgiest thing we can think of with no regard for anyone and saying everything is racist. If you say something, you should lose your job. We're finding a middle ground where, maybe it's tastefully offensive in small doses, less is more.
So it sounds like you believe in the survival of the American experiment.
Yeah, I really do. And listen, I don't think everything about wokeism was bad necessarily.
What's the best thing about wokeism?
I think that genuinely it has has made people more respectful and empathetic. Because let's be honest, 20 years ago, let's say when I was growing up, I think there was a lot of cruelty, and I think there were some hateful attitudes. And I think as time has gone on, this younger generation, they may not be even left-wing, they may not be what you'd consider woke, but I think they are respectful of people that have different ideas or, you know, a different way of life or from a different culture. You know, we make jokes all the time about the fact that I'm like a far-right guy and I'm Mexican. People say I'm a white supremacist, I'm Mexican. And
but I feel like for the most part, though, that's really only been a one-way street, whereas like white people in general have been a bit more respectful, a bit more of paying homage to, where it really didn't translate to the rest of the groups. Like, it's, you know, everyone's seen like the Chuck E. Cheese or like the Carnival Cruise rides. It's like, that doesn't make me feel like these people are very considerate of other ways of life or even other people near them in their vicinity.
People make a joke that a lot of far-right people are Hispanic. And I think that's a consequence that there's very little genuine racial hatred in anybody's DNA anymore, or any kind of hatred. And I think that's positive, but that went too far. I think some of the other stuff went too far as well.
Hablas español?
No, not a little bit, I guess, from high school.
Can you do a little bit?
Un poco.
Okay,
I don't speak it from my dad, so
okay,
just
cool.
from high school.
Yeah, a lot of people, that's kind of like their bullseye smoking gun when they're hating on you. They're like, he's a white supremacist, but he's Mexican.
Yeah.
Did you grow up like around a lot of Mexicans?
No, all white people for the most part.
Did they know you were Mexican?
They did. And I'm not going to lie, I mean, people made fun of me for that.
What'd they say?
Well, like, for example, one time, when I was in Model UN, I was entering high school as a freshman. They looked at my name on the roster without knowing me, and they told me this after the fact, the leadership of the club. They said, oh, we thought you were just some Mexican kid, so we gave you a bad committee assignment.
Wow.
But see, I heard that, and I laughed.
Based?
I said, that's funny. You know, whereas a lot of people would say, oh, that's traumatic. I'm a victim of racism. You know, I think that's, you know, it's just a human thing.
Yeah, I always felt like growing up as like a white kid in America.
What if you went, wait, what if you were and identified as being Mexican and they came to you and they didn't tell you that's the reason that they gave you all the bad committee assignments?
That would be unfair.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
the
I'm just
point.
saying.
That's the whole point, isn't it?
And
so
I'm
you
not-
may find it funny because you pass as a white Anglo-Christian.
Do you think I pass?
What?
You think I pass as a white Anglo-Christian?
Well, I not only think you
Yeah,
pass, I think you
yeah.
identify as a, yeah.
That's good stuff.
No, but really, for real. And my point is that I heard you do an interview. Okay.
That's great.
Literally on the write up here. It's like you were talking about how you were raised on like Mark Levin in high school.
Listen, you know how for black people they say you're invited to the cookout? Listen, for white people they're invited to the ball. Nick is invited to the ball. Welcome in, you know, bring the suit. You can come in, dog. You can tap dance all over.
Right.
And the thing that you liked the most about Mark Levin is how cruel he was to
Tastefully
the
accurate.
callers.
It could just be accurate.
I don't get that. Like the joke about the cookies. It may be a joke and it may be edgelording and you may not really mean it, but you got to realize the cruelty to it. And without going like, oh, like, you know, wham, like, you know, people got to stop crying about the past. And that's the thing, is that I think that you have such an opportunity to talk to a generation of disaffected, angry, legitimately angry people in a way in which is
What's up, Zeb?
without having to do that shit. And by the way, and I'm not holding you responsible for, like, you know, the end of you know, my conception of Western civilization, which is different than yours. But I just don't get it. I don't get why you find the cruelty. And I think that, by the way, I think that that's why you like Trump. I mean, this is, I'm making, you know, like a very unfair leap, because his first instinct is cruelty. His first instinct is to find the fault in the other. About everything, by the way. It's not his fault that that we're in a war with Iran that he's ended 38 times and, you know, and started 39. It's not his fault that inflation's high. It's not his fault that the wall didn't get built. It's not his fault that ICE is killing people on the streets in these places. It's the cruelty of it. Maybe it's a generational thing. I got friends who are Jewish that are going to be really, really fucking pissed off that I'm sitting next to you. And what do I tell them? What do I tell them why it's okay for me to sit and have this conversation with you?
I guess I just have such a different opinion of that. You know, why should we have to explain ourselves to talk to anybody? And why is it that saying the wrong words or making a particular joke?
The framing here of Hunter Biden being like And now I have to answer for this. Now I have to answer to my Jewish friends. Like, I have to give them a reason. Like, what's the excuse? Like, what do I tell them? It's like, I don't live my life like that. I don't live, and I don't go through life expecting and always needing to have an understanding that I have to explain myself. I need validation from everybody around me. Like, that's ridiculous. What a sad way to live.
Makes it so the Jewish person wouldn't want to watch my show. I have a lot of Jewish fans. I mean, some of my best friends are Jewish. I've had Jewish employees, and they recognize that, you know, just because I'm not necessarily nice all the time doesn't mean I'm hateful, doesn't mean, I don't even think they see it as cruel. I think they see it as it's a little rough around the edges. And maybe that's the difference, is I guess it's just attributing this weight to something that can considered a joke and maybe doesn't have a cruel intention behind it. Like,
maybe the better question.
You got to remember, at the end of the day, it's an entertainment show. It's entertainment. People call in. He gets frustrated with them. It's part of what I do on my show. And it's not always nice, but it's funny. And I don't think it's mean-spirited necessarily. And I don't think it's that big of a deal. So, I mean, the thought that I would, like, for example, with you, people would say, why do you talk to Hunter Biden? His father and his DOJ froze your money and put you on a no-fly list. I'd say, so what? I mean, it's just talking. I don't think talking's a big deal, you know?
Froze my money and put me on a no-fly list, too.
There you go. See, so we got that in common.
A different question that I have that kind of weaves everything together. How do you think, like, October 7th and the subsequent, like, pro-Palestine movement and the online worlds it created led to the growing audience on the right?
October 7th in particular? Yeah. Well, I think it highlighted and brought to the forefront how captured the right wing is by Israel, which is very unique. I think the Democrats and the Republicans are pro-Israel, but the Republican Party has this inextricable institutional connection with the Israel lobby, with this Likud government in particular. And I think people just started to see the hypocrisies. The hypocrisy was brought to the forefront, which is America first, but not with Israel. No new wars except for with Iran. You know, we're going to be racist and all these things, but don't you dare be anti-Semitic. Don't even, you know, think about it. So I think that on the right wing, it made it unignorable that there's this ideological institutional capture.
I just feel like a lot of straightforward, like, just anti-Semite influencers were taking advantage of the post-October 7th discourse to push other ideas, broader ideas about Jewish people as a whole.
Well, I mean, I think it's hard to...
I mean, of course. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason why we're even here right now. That in tandem with what X was and also with Rumble as well. Hey. Thank you very much, Zeb Boykin. I appreciate that greatly. Thank you for the super chat. But yeah, so these two things work in tandem, and of course, people are going to exploit it as much as they possibly can and embolden themselves. Take this now, like, see what's happening on October 7th? Okay, well, let me tell you X, Y, and Z. Oh, do you know about the dancing Israelis? Oh, do you know about the... I mean, of course, it was going to go hand in hand.
To ignore some of those other conversations. I know that it's now become maybe in vogue to say that the Israel issue is very narrow. It's just Netanyahu. It's just the Likudniks. It's just the Israel lobby. But, you know, what would you say about someone like Larry Ellison? I mean, somebody like that, I don't think fits neatly into this, let's say, problem of Netanyahu.
As far as installing Barry Weiss and whatnot.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Because this is somebody who's not Israeli. He's not even a religious Jew, but he's ethnically Jewish and has this deep affinity for the state of Israel and is using and mobilizing his power and resources and connections to benefit Israel in the private sector. And so if you were to say, what's a law that we could pass to prevent that kind of influence, what would it look like? He's an American citizen. He can't buy a media company and hire Barry Weiss to run CBS News, and yet we recognize that's a big problem.
I just feel the conflation of, like, anti-Zionism and, like, Holocaust denial played into the hands of the Israeli propaganda apparatus, because then they can say, hey, look, these people that oppose what we're doing in Palestine also don't think the Holocaust happened. It's a big jump in the public perception.
It was almost, to me, as if that was your intent. To lose any legitimacy about any argument as it relates to Israel and the Likud government, is to say those edgelording things or whatever. I don't know anybody that can hear you after you say
420,
that, including myself. It delegitimizes everything, because I don't think that you... a little bit of more compassion.
Let's try to stay a little. I don't want to do any character attacks on Nick.
I'm not attacking his character. I'm not attacking. I promise you, I'm
no,
not.
But as far as compassion,
that's where the fist fight happens. I've been waiting for it the whole time.
The rise in anti-Semitic online influencers post-October 7th has given Israel more ammunition to work with in terms of casting everyone who opposes what they're doing as just like a rabid Jew hater.
In some cases, yeah, in some cases, sure. But I also think that's overstated because I think that, look, let's just be honest. I do believe the political left wants to make the Israel issue very narrow. And they want to say that the issue is this genocide in Palestine. And on some level, they think that the Israeli government is racist. And that's the problem. And I think that ignores that there is a broader conversation. And it does have to do with the Holocaust. And it does have to do with Jews as such and Jewish nationalism and Jewish identity. So to try to shoehorn it in and say, well, if anybody goes further than this very narrow critique of Israel, well, they're actually helping Israel. I don't agree with that. I think we have to unpack the whole conversation.
Well, do you care a lot about Palestinians?
Not more than I care about anybody else.
So I guess that would be why that they would be like, okay, you're just taking advantage of this discourse.
I don't think it's taking advantage. I think that we can sympathize with the Palestinians while also realizing that, look, I'm an American. And so it's a tragedy what's happening in Palestine, but there's tragedies happening all over the world. My problem is that Israel has this influence over our government, and we're paying for the genocide, and we're furnishing them with the weapons to commit the genocide. And by the way, America is going to be held liable for this genocide, morally, but also politically and diplomatically and otherwise. But I think that people on the left, they may be guilty of maybe caring more about Palestine than they do about America.
Nick, but the left didn't cancel you. The right canceled you first. The right canceled you first. And Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire, and those were the people that canceled.
And the question to that would be why? Why was the right wing the one who canceled him first? Why?
May have utilized the tools of the left, or what you call the left, to be able to do that. But it was the right that canceled you. And by the way, what I would consider a radical right. The Daily Wire, to me, is a radical right.
I don't think they're even reactionary. I don't think they're that conservative at all. Ben Shapiro, I mean, he's not he's in favor of mass migration.
In 2016, they were alt-right.
No, they were not.
Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire were, from my perspective, they were all right.
Yeah, that's a matter.
They were John McCain.
Right here would know.
Yeah. But by the way, no, really,
it's all
for real.
relative.
I'm saying, I guess they were to the right of Mitt Romney.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's what I mean, and that's
they
what
weren't
I'm
more conservative.
Barely.
My point was, that's who you were canceled by.
I was also canceled by the left.
No, I know. They came along. They came along because some of the more egregious things that you said is edgelording. They came along. Whether you call it canceling or saying what the fuck? This is what I call it. What the fuck? what the fuck? And so I don't find it funny. And just like you're able to say, well, I just think it's funny, I'm able to say, I don't find it fucking funny. I didn't find it funny then, I don't find it funny now. I didn't find it funny that some of the things that, you said,
I don't find it fucking funny. It's dude, okay, tough guy.
About me. But I'm willing to sit here and listen to you because I want to get to this, and this is my whole point. What about fucking Donald Trump?
Yeah, we can get to that. Yeah.
How of all the people in the world?
Thank you.
But you could look at and say he doesn't believe anything.
So for context for the viewer, Donald Trump is currently the sitting president of the U.S. For our audience abroad, the war with Iran was supposed to be over. Now we're back in business, baby. Khomeini had a pretty sick funeral if you saw the video. So you guys don't like Trump? You used to like him.
I did.
You've always hated him. He's tried to destroy your life.
Yeah.
You guys were cool. You guys hung out once at Mar-a-Lago with Kanye. You've never hung out with Trump, right? Would you want to?
No. Do I want to? Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Look, man, I would. Can we get him? Can we get him in the motel room?
So I want you to imagine,
let's get him in
I want you to imagine he's in the motel with us.
Yeah.
That's Trump. What do you want to? What do you want to ask him?
Oh, put me on the spot. I don't want to ask Donald Trump anything. Because I know, and I think you would agree with me, is that Donald Trump isn't going to give me an authentic answer. Donald Trump never gives an authentic answer. He gives what people refer to as being authentic, but it's not authentic, it's audacious. It's like the example that I give that is the best metaphor for this is that he says he's 6'3", weighs 225 pounds. And everybody laughs because that's a little bit like edgelording, right? Everybody knows that he is maybe 6 feet and weighs maybe 300. 285?
He's a big guy. He's a pretty big guy.
Yeah, big guy. But by virtue of every picture ever taken of anyone.
I don't know. Trump's got to be close to 300, if not a little bit over. That's probably about right in that range, 285 to 315, and probably maybe even more so because he's gotten a bit older, I would imagine.
It's 6'3". He's not 6'3".
I am.
Okay? Yeah, I know you are.
Thank you.
You're 6'2.5", maybe. That's maybe. But my point is that the reason I don't have a question for him is because I'm absolutely certain that he is not going to give me an authentic answer. Look, he came into the Oval Office with and the transition this time, and he told my dad that he thought that he did an amazing job. He did an amazing job with the economy. He did an amazing job that with NATO. He did an amazing job, and that he got a raw deal from his side, and anything he could do, particularly for Hunter. Hunter got screwed. Whatever I could do, you let me know. Bullshit. He then went out, and he has now since then done nothing but blame Joe Biden for every single one of his problems. He mentioned my dad's name.
Thank you greatly, Mr. Bitcoin. I appreciate that.
6 times a day in the first 100 days of this administration. 6 times a day. He does it maybe 4 times a day now, because he has no answers. All he has is a finger to point. And that's all he does. My point is, I don't know what to ask him, you know. Why are you such a dick?
What does your dad think about the war?
What? What? I'm not going to get into what my dad thinks about the war. Is it really, because I don't want to get into, I don't put words in my dad's mouth, just like I wouldn't ask you what your dad thinks about the war, but your dad wasn't the president of the United States, which is a little bit different. But, you know, all I can say is this, is that every single Israeli prime minister since at least Jimmy Carter was president, has walked into the Oval Office or picked up the phone and called the president and said, we have to attack Iran. And every single one of them has said no. And they may not all have had the same exact reason, but one of the reasons they did is because they knew what the consequences would be as it relates to the lifeblood of the economy.
And the question is why? And where did it come from? Why did it start? How did it start? And for what reason? Now, are we going to get to that point? I doubt it. Who knows?
Petroleum in the Straits of Hormuz. Every single one of them knew that. And every single one of them knew that there is no way, unless you send in ground forces, to end with certainty the nuclear program that the Iranians have supposedly been building. Every single one of them knew that the existing Ayatollah, the Ayatollah at that time, had put out a fatwa, an edict saying that they would never turn their nuclear technology into a bomb. It was a religious edict as strong as if the Pope had released an encyclical. But what did he do? He kills the Ayatollah. We get a son that now has a far more radical and far greater ties to the IRGC. And of course. What do we have? The Straits of Hormuz are still closed. He said that they're brilliant people. I find
they pulled his son basically out of the rubble with his entire family like burned and blown to pieces around him. I believe if he was not the sole survivor, it was like only one other person in a group. It was like a room of like 20, 30 people overall. And who would they not radicalize, no matter what your beliefs were? It's like, here's your entire family. One second you're with them, the next second it's like they're gone. I mean, it's just kind of a wild, just kind of an obvious, like, commonsensical concept.
That's Donald Trump on everything. He said he'd end the war in Ukraine on day one. And I didn't hear anybody on the right and say, that's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. He said that he would build a wall. I don't believe in building a wall. But everybody said that's bullshit. And then when he got into
the story.
Office,
maimed and burned.
The level of the corruption. I mean, people believed,
disfigured, like scarred,
that there was this thing called the Biden crime family, right? I know that you know is that I didn't do a single piece of business when my dad was president. I made basically $200,000 a year selling paintings. I picked the thing that was the furthest possible thing away from politics that I possibly could. Don and Eric have done over $1.3 billion in contracts, just in contracts for underlying companies that they have an ownership stake in with the Department of Defense.
This is really where Hunter Biden can actually shine, like in this kind of narrow window here, which is like comparing what everyone raged about in terms of the Burisma quid pro quo corruption between Biden with Joe Biden and then his son, Hunter Biden, and then comparing that to the ongoing corruption and enrichment that's going on with the Trump administration between largely like Howard Lutnick and his children, the family inside of, Trump family, whether it's, Trump Jr. or whether it's what's the other one name, like Eric Trump. Like you compare both of those like on a 1-to-1, it's like it's not proportional. It's like not even anything close to one another. It's like one is severely worse than the other, and that's really what Hunter Biden's use is going to be here in the next couple of years as we get closer to the Democrats ultimately probably coming into power in 28.
Don Jr. got the largest loan ever given by the Department of Defense of a company that he bought into like 3 months before they got the loan. Because Peter Navarro picked up the phone and called DOD to get it done. My point is, I don't have anything productive to say to him that I know of. And when I listen to you, and I listen to what you do, my question is how did you not see that before? He was a disaster in 2020, a complete and utter disaster as it related to what he did with COVID, right, regardless of whether you think we're supposed to be wearing a mask or not.
Mm-hmm. The question for Nick is...
Okay, so that is part 2. We're going to go back and check out, hopefully I'm going to refresh this from Greg. Hopefully he has part 3 out now, I would expect. Maybe we're moving too quick for him. Part 2, we only have part 1 and part 2. Okay, it looks like we just don't have part 3 out right now. Let me actually try to go back and refresh this on Greg the Groiper's page. So it's the final 30 minutes. I did see the runtime of the interview was 1 hour and 33 minutes. We've moved through the first hour. Let me go back to Greg the Groiper's page. Still only part 2 of part 3. This was from about, 40 minutes ago? I would imagine it's going to be coming any second now. We might have caught up to him, honestly.
You don't seem to understand. Earth.
Thank you greatly.
Yours to conquer.
I'm done pretending he wasn't the GOAT. Bring back the God Emperor sent $5 powerful.
Americans have never, ever, ever, ever let their country down. We are America, second to none, and we own the finish line.
Go Biden. Man, I miss Biden. Thank you very much for the power chat. I appreciate it. Zeb Boykin saying recap, please. Really, it didn't really go anywhere at all. At the beginning, kind of the first 10, 20, 30 minutes was centered around civil rights, racialism. Hunter Biden just disagreed with the premise, what the foundation was with some of Nick's claims. There's really no even agreement there at all. The back half we listened to just most recently was the corruption element, which I expect we're going to get more of, I hope. And then in the middle there was the anti-Semitism, the beginning of the Israel talk, and also some of the chumminess going back and forth. And I think what was the intermediate section that's kind of boring? It was like the social bonds of, diversity is who's responsible for these different social bonds being destroyed, whether it's technology or otherwise, or diversity. But I will maintain and sit here and keep refreshing this. Hopefully we can get it up soon from Mr. Greg the Groiper. So far not seeing anything. I can check myself to see if it has been posted by somebody else. I'll do that real quick. Hunter Biden, Nick Fuentes. We'll probably just get the trailers, I would imagine. Oh, here's the full interview. Okay, perfect. So we're about an hour in. We'll start right here. Perfect. W, and whoever wants to check it out, this is what's posted by Groiper Quant. So Groiper_Quant on X if you want to go check this out for yourself. Shout out to them, though, for posting it. And we'll finish out this final 33 minutes here.
To end with certainty the nuclear program that the Iranians have supposedly been building. Every single one of them knew that the existing Ayatollah at that time, had put out a fatwa, an edict saying that they would never turn their nuclear technology into a bomb. It was a religious edict as strong as if the Pope had released an encyclical. But what did he do? He kills the Ayatollah. We get a son that now has a far more radical and far greater ties to the IRGC. And what do we have? The Straits of Hormuz are still closed. He said that they're brilliant people. I find that that's Donald Trump on everything. He said he'd end the war in Ukraine on day one. And I didn't hear anybody on the right and say, that's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. He said that he would build a wall. I don't believe in building a wall. But everybody said that's bullshit. And then when he got into office, the corruption, the level of the corruption, I mean, people believed or led to believe that there was this thing called the Biden crime family, right? I know that is that I didn't do a single piece of business when my dad was president. I made basically $200,000 a year selling paintings. I picked the thing that was the furthest possible thing away from politics that I possibly could. Don and Eric have done over $1.3 billion in contracts, just in contracts for underlying companies that they have an ownership stake in with the Department of Defense. Don Jr. got the largest loan ever given by the Department of Defense of a company that he bought into like 3 months before they got the loan. Because Peter Navarro picked up the phone and called.
Thank you very much for the super chat.
My point is,
For
I don't have
half
anything
3 AD reads.
productive to say to him that I know of. And when I listen to you and I listen to what you do, my question is how did you not see that before? He was a disaster in 2020, a complete and utter disaster as it related to what he did with COVID. Regardless of whether you think we were wearing a mask or not.
Mm-hmm. The question for Nick is, how did you not realize 6 years ago that Trump would be this sort of letdown?
Because he doesn't hold, you know, there's no ideological core to Donald Trump.
No, I agree with you. Yeah. Well, you got to realize in 2016 where Republicans were at. We had John McCain, we had Mitt Romney, and the perception on the right is that they were insufficiently conservative and that they were losers. All they do is lose because they don't fight. There was this perception that the Democrats are ruthless, fighters. Obama crushed in 2008, crushed when we thought he really should have lost in 2012. That was a Republican perception that Romney let us down. And so when Trump came on the scene in 2016, it was new, it was refreshing. He seemed like somebody that was really going to take on not just the Democrats, but also the media on our behalf. And what's more, you got to think about the mood of the moment in 16 as well and the message Trump was giving. Trump said in 16, it's just me and my son and my wife. We don't have any donors. We don't have any special interests. We're going to put America first, make the country great again. This is a very appealing message. And I talk all the time on my show about it and realizing now that it was obviously a scam and now obviously unfulfilled completely. And you're right, Trump is non-ideological. The message was brilliant because it said, one, the system is broken. America's not great anymore, but it used to be. We can make it great again, but in order to do it, we need to actually bypass the system. Why is it that we never have victories? Why is it that things don't change? Because of money. He said, and that's why I'm different. I'm rich. I'm a billionaire. If I self-fund my campaign and don't take super PAC money, then I won't have to listen to the lobbyists and the special interests. I could fire the people I need to fire, do the things I need to do.
And we find ourselves with the exact same problem right now again. Obviously, the MAGA administration, the MAGA entity, whatever that was, has entirely just been, for lack of better words, a scam. Like, we are left here at the end of Trump era, and is America any better than where it was? If anything, if you even talk about like the social media and maybe free speech is a bit better, you can't even credit that to Trump either. This is like Elon Musk doing this under Biden. And so when you look at the space, you realize that nothing really has been done. But the dissident right, the far right, the right wing in general, not the establishment right, we're still left with this major problem, which is we don't have the bigwig financier here. We don't have any guys who are like can just dump money and finance people like Nick Fuentes or finance other people in the space who they want to push and believe in, like a James Fishback, for example. And until that problem gets solved, I think Nick is correct to say that's why we need more young men pursuing to be elite human capital, pursuing to be rich, because we need those elements. We need those millionaires who can actually swing their weight when it matters in terms of our political system.
That was like a very powerful message in 2016. And after 4 years, I was one of the people even back then that said, look, it never materialized. He did wind up taking super PAC money. He took AIPAC money for that matter, Sheldon Adelson money at that time in 16. Even in the first term, bombed Iran. In the first term, didn't build the wall. In the first term, didn't even reduce illegal immigration until 2019. And I remember the timeline perfectly because I covered it every day. It was like in May and June 2019, 20-year illegal immigration high in terms of month over month. But why did I go for him in 2020? At the height of the pandemic, we all thought on the right that if anyone other than Trump was president, you were going to get a vaccine mandate, which we really didn't want to be forced to take the vaccine. We thought the lockdown might never end. We thought that censorship would kick into overdrive. And so we said, really, it's unacceptable that anyone other than Trump would just be a disaster. And then obviously Biden came in, and I don't think it was as bad as we thought it would be, to tell you the truth, honestly. But by 2024, I mean, I was out in 2024 because everything you're saying is totally true. And I was telling people on my side, I was saying he's not going to build the wall. And I know you're against that. He's not going to do the mass deportations, promising that. He's not going to start no new wars. I said in 24, he's going to take us to war in Iran. And the Ukraine war, I said, that's not going to end in one day. too complicated. We're already in it. And so I didn't vote. I didn't vote in 2024. And I told my followers not to vote for Trump for that reason. And it was only until a year later, after all the exuberance died down and people saw the bearing of the Epstein files, the war in Iran, people said, you know what? You were right. You were right about Trump. Even Alex Jones told me, you were right about Trump. I was all in on him. So, I mean, as far as him being vaporware is concerned and a scammer, and fundamentally, you're 100% right, no ideological core. He's not an ideological guy. Yeah, it is. He's
literally all about him.
And I agree, he's a cruel narcissist. Yeah. And you said I like the cruelty. I do not like the cruelty.
No, by the way, no. I didn't say you like the cruelty. I said I'm listening to your thing, and you said one of the things that you liked about Levin.
It did just like, okay, the quality upgraded by tenfold, and I'm assuming it's because whoever ripped the full interview did his best to keep to maintain resolution. Whatever we were watching was like in 480p, or maybe even less than that.
Was the cruelty, and not for the cruelty's sake. It didn't seem to me like this. Is because it was raw.
Dazzling,
it was, yeah, and that's so. I'm not saying that.
No, but I agree. I think he is cruel, and even what he said on Easter. I mean, we're Catholic. On Easter Sunday, he says we're going to annihilate Iran, and then he made fun of Allah on Easter Sunday. So, you know, that kind of stuff, it just totally turned me off.
It's tone deaf, and to go one further, many of you might remember during the eulogy for Charlie Kirk, and yes, the one where Erica Kirk was like jumping up and there's fireworks going off everywhere. You would do well to remember that during that, Trump said not once, but I believe 3 different times, he referred to Jesus Christ and God and like in Christianity as like, that was Charlie's God. Like, oh, they believed in that. And he was like distancing himself from that even then. And then you obviously get to where we are in the Iran war. It's like so much of it is tone deaf. And to think that he is like this avatar, this figurehead for so many right-wing Christians who think nothing of it, is part of the reason why I think many people are falling off, just maybe despite the evangelicals.
Is there anything that you think Trump can do to like regain the support of the, I guess, Gen Z and millennial right?
No, it's over. People see what he's made of. And Hunter's right, he's a liar. He is a liar. He is a bullshit artist. And especially, you look at what he did with the Epstein files, with the war in Iran, what he did to Thomas Massie, you realize that if you are America first, you have no place in this Republican Party, because he said it. He said our Republican Party, or rather, he said MAGA is Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, Randy Fine. He said, and who is not MAGA? Megyn Kelly, Tucker, Alex Jones, Candace. And I think most Republicans said, well, we're with those other people. We're not MAGA anymore. So
what do you think happens, Nick? I believe that we need radical change. And I'm not talking about violence or revolution or things like that. I'm talking about the only ways that you can have this kind of radical rethinking of the system. Like, there's so many questions. Like, what do you think about the Epstein files? What do you think about the accountability? Or do you think that he's broken the system to the degree that we now are basically in a dictatorship light?
No, I have a lot of confidence only because I think the Democrats are going to take the House in 26, which I support. I'm telling my people, vote Democrat. We want the Democrats in the House, because what they're going to do is they're going to use the oversight powers to bring all the corruption to light. Because I know Republicans will watch this, and when you say, you know, we didn't commit crime, they're going to be skeptical. However, for the sake of argument, let's say the income you made during Biden was ill-gotten. For the sake of example, it's just doesn't hold a candle. It doesn't even come close, doesn't even touch Jared Kushner, Howard Lutnick, Steve Witkoff, Don Jr., Trump himself. It's just a different sport. It's a different game entirely. And I want all that corruption to be revealed. And I think the Democrats are going to do it. I hope they get impeached. I don't think they'll be removed from office. But I think it'll basically drag this administration to a halt. And then in 28, I think there's an opportunity for a clean reset with both sides, right and left.
Yeah, it would be surprising to see it go to impeachments, and I think there's a pathway for that. Although I'm less believable that it's even possible. The primary function of it will be to weaken the brand and give like 2 years of the Democrats running oversight committee after oversight committee after investigation after pulling up evidence like this and weakening the brand of what Trump is, and really kind of just trying to deplete what it means to people, and really kind of hold a lighter to people's faces and be like, hey, is this what you want? Do you see what your guy did?
Whenever you talk about Trump, sometimes you explain this like nightmare scenario that revolves around a Vance presidency.
Yes.
What about J.D. Vance being in power scares you so much?
If Trump doesn't have an ideological core, then Vance really doesn't, because Vance is a chameleon. That's not his real name, for openers. Never had a real job. These are all sinecures given to him by Peter Thiel. 6 years ago, he's a never Trumper. Now he's a national conservative, national populist. And so we don't even really know who he is. I mean, to me, this is basically a Manchurian candidate. This is a shell. And who is the power behind him? It's the oligarchs. It's the little tech oligarchs in bed with the CIA, you know, especially at this fever pitch with AI. I think that's really dangerous. So to me, him being president is just a worse scenario in my mind.
For the uninformed viewer, what is the Palantir-JD Vance connection?
Well, Palantir was founded by Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel is very close with David Sachs. JD Vance was given his first job in Silicon Valley by Thiel. Thiel hooked him up with it. You know, the CEO of that company said it was a personal favor to Thiel that I hired him. And then Thiel got him all his jobs at these various venture capital firms, including his own, and then funding JD Vance's venture capital firm. Peter Thiel gave $15 million to Vance when he ran for Senate in Ohio in 22. Peter Thiel secured President Trump's endorsement for him in 22, which basically got him the nomination and the seat. So, I mean,
And also, too, he might not mention it here, but also Peter Thiel also backed Joe Kent as well, which you may notice. You have Tucker Carlson and Joe Kent are very closely, they're closely linked. They're good friends, as well as JD Vance also connected to Tucker Carlson too. So now that we kind of see more pieces on the board, it's easier to see who is all kind of a part of this network that has attached itself to this Palantir entity.
As far as anybody's concerned, Vance owes his entire political career to Peter Thiel, who derives his fortune from Palantir.
And now he's a Catholic like you and me.
Well, he's a convert, so, you know.
Beware the convert.
Yeah.
So do you think that Trump's unfulfillment of his campaign promises was a result of him being like compromised by somebody connected to that structure, or do you think he always just never cared?
I don't know that he never cared. I just think that, you know, me, I'm an idealist. So I think about the ideas and the concepts. Trump is a businessman. And so I think with him, everything's transactional. And I said this in 2024. Trump knew the voters would swallow anything. The voters would not walk away from the table because they were enamored with him. So he knew he could break every promise with them in order to fulfill promises for the donor class, which is little tech, the Israel lobby, and Wall Street. The bankers, Tim Mellon, you know, the big asset managers. So I think with him, everything's business, everything's a transaction. And that's why you can't trust him. You have to do business. And in 24, I said we should all collectively say we're not going to vote unless he makes certain commitments. And not enough people did that. But I mean, that's fundamentally his flaw. Your critique of this like elite power structure sounds like vaguely anti-capitalist. It's not anti-capitalist. You know, capitalism says the capital, large amounts of capital will be held in private hands, which I believe in. I am a capitalist.
When do they fight?
But I think what is happening is that it's the way that money is used in government. There needs to be a distinct and separate national power that subordinates the money power to it. The problem is the billionaires buy all the elections, buy all the media, control public perception, and so really we're all subsidiary then to the market. So I support capitalism, but it just has to be underneath the nation, underneath the state. It seems like you have a pretty optimistic perspective on the year 2028. Kind of keep coming back to this like clean election year. Do you think that's going to be like a renaissance year for outsider candidates and outside media channels like this one? It can be. I think it certainly can be, because I think there's frustration on the right and on the left. You know, you see even in the primaries on the Democrat side, it's all DSA progressive types that are winning. You ironically have the same frustration on the left with their establishment as we have on the right. And so I think, you know, in 2028, it's going to be a year where there'll be a competitive Republican primary.
And that's really the main kind of operating thing here, which is, if you remember, for those who were around and who were paying attention to it, when Trump ran there in 2015, it was like, you know, it was almost kind of wild to think that the Republican primary had like 15, 16 people participating all at once. One, the reason being was because the brand of the GOP, the brand of Republicans, had been just so utterly devastated at that point that there were so many people who found that they could have a viable chance to run. Whereas if current status quo translate to 28, that's not going to be the energy. You're still going to have like strong brand between both Vance and Rubio, and it's kind of like a two-dog race where anybody who's like a third party, not like a third party, but like a third party candidate and not attached to either of those two, they're not going to get much backing, because if Polymarket has either of those guys winning with over like a 30% chance, no one's going to see anybody else outside of that as even being viable in any kind of way, shape, or form. But you can only really get that by destroying the MAGA brand, which is part of the reason that goes into the plan of Nick, which is to get Democrats the blue wave in the midterms so that they have the power that can weaken the GOP brand to usher in what we can hope for in the dark horse in 2028.
And Democratic primary, and hopefully the people make their voice heard and we get some new options, maybe that reflect the will of the people more.
Yeah. And so, what do you think about somebody like Mamdani?
Personally, I don't like him. I don't like some of the things that he said, like, for example, on 4th of July, when he takes the opportunity to sit there with, let's be honest, not a single white person in the room and says, the founding fathers would look down on us, the working people with their dirt-streaked hands against the billionaires. I think it's a little too divisive. I like his energy. I like that he's young. It's ironic. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
That's rich, buddy. But no, look,
but it seems pointed at me.
I know, but yeah.
That's funny.
The thing is,
He was dissing you in that video?
Yeah, a little bit.
Staring down the camera like, you Nick, you son of a bitch.
People like me.
Yeah.
but what I see is somebody is using government for exactly the purpose that you just said, is to break the oligopoly, to target the anger towards a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of the population that has controlled the levers of government from the White House down to the mayor's office in New York City or Peoria, Illinois, to that matter, and even more so as you go further down that chain. And so I look at somebody like Mamdani, and regardless of his delivery, which may be off-putting, particularly from somebody coming from your side, is that he's delivering, man. You know what? I mean, he's really delivering. Like I saw somebody going after Mamdani for some of this stuff, and particularly about
Somehow the best camera angle is that one.
And I was like, well, how do you think the middle class was built after World War II in the GI Bill and rent-controlled buildings that created those communities that we were talking about an hour ago? Created the availability for somebody that was 26 years old that had a job with the MTA to be able to live and work in the city and put the kid in a school with the idea that they would be safe walking there and go to a park that, where the water fountains worked. That's what I see him trying to do. I mean, by the way, it's just so tired and ridiculous. He's a communist, like it's about the communists. Like, who even says that anymore? Nobody, like, you know what? It was 1981 and, we're watching Rocky V and worried about the communists. You know what I mean? I just don't get it.
Rocky IV.
Oh, was it Rocky IV? My whole Philly legitimacy was just blown right there. Yeah. And so I look at somebody like Mamdani, I think, well, he's just talking about good government. Like, what do you think about healthcare? Don't you think that there should be a single-payer system? Don't you think that there should be some guarantee as a right? Because I don't know how you make it in this country and aspire to a middle-class life and be able to afford a catastrophic event as it relates to your health. I mean, it's over. You're done.
Yeah. I don't support single payer, but I do believe that everybody should be entitled to some minimum level of coverage, catastrophic insurance. So, in principle, I agree.
Which is,
and what the bare minimum, I think what most people can recognize is, like, whatever you think about what the American healthcare system is, at the bare minimum, what we shouldn't be doing is sending money to these NATO countries and EU countries and elsewhere like Israel, Ukraine, but these countries that basically are able to have their own healthcare systems that do operate in that way because it's off the back of our money, our tax dollars. And it's like, so at the bare minimum, like, they shouldn't be able to get it off of our money. Whether you want to have different kind of system here is whatever, especially because it's like, what benefit is that giving us here? It's like our tax dollars should work for American citizens, not for foreign people. No matter what our relationship is, no matter what the alliance is, American tax dollars need to stay in America, period, point blank.
It's Medicare for all to a certain degree, right? I mean, because that's all the Medicare does right now. But why is that radical?
See, I don't think that's necessarily radical, but
to them, it's because we've been convinced that it's
to
a radical
them,
idea.
those others.
Yeah.
Communism just disappeared.
The
Poof.
insurance companies.
Sure. Yeah.
And their lobbyists who control 55% of Congress, regardless of who's in power.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think that's necessarily the most radical. I think, though, he is with the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. He backs all these DSA candidates. And let's be honest, a lot of them are radical.
There's more nuance
like
to
I
it,
saw
yes.
one of these candidates that just won in New York a couple weeks ago, the Chevalier candidate. There's a picture.
She hates my dad.
Yeah, I know.
She said about my dad.
She had awful things about him.
Yeah.
And she says, oh, I didn't have a napkin to wipe my hands, so I used the American flag.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I think it's crazy, but like the same way that I thought a lot of the stuff that some people that got elected in 2016, 2020, even during the Tea Party, kind of movement was, egregious. Again, egregious. So what do we do? What do we do, Nick?
I think a better question.
I mean, for real, what do we do? Can you at least come a little bit to this way?
If you can come a little this way.
I can. Here's where I can come. Is this? Do you get what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
About the Holocaust thing?
Oh, about that.
Yeah. No, I mean really.
I do. And
That's
listen,
crazy,
here's what I'll say.
dude.
Now that I'm older, I do think that's not the best approach. So I agree with you on that. And I see it as I get older.
I'm gonna come.
Let's be honest. Saying those things when I'm a younger guy, when I'm 18, 20, it's like you got to think that's just the age. And a lot of young people think that's funny and everything like that. I think that it also goes with the medium as well. Live streaming, social media, that's just what it rewards. So yeah, I think that people should try to move past some of that.
I'll try. But
Don't come.
If you try.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
For real. And as it relates to when.
Bro, that Hunter Biden right now is coming off as like that drunk uncle that you see. He's like, come on, bring it in, man. He's like, you know I love you, man. It's like, it's just like his breath is like in your face. You're like, dude, yeah, I get it. He's like, man, because it's like he just gets in his feelings when he starts drinking. Like that's what it reminds me of right now.
Talk about Israel, the Netanyahu Likud government, what's happening now, what's happened for the past 20 years in terms of whether the funding to Israel, whether you think it is. It's really important that you make a distinction between that and Jews. Because here's the thing, okay? Zoran Mamdani has a higher favorability rating in the United States among Jews than Bibi Netanyahu does. I think 65% of American Jews disagree with the approach that the Israeli government has right now. They don't disagree with you, but they completely turn off when they hear the conflation of Jews, Zionism, Israel, and think automatically anti-Semitism, whether it's fair or not, okay? But you have to understand it. And you have to understand it from a cultural perspective in which the recent history is only one data point in 2,000 years of history as it relates to what it means to be a Jew, of which there is what, 1%, 0.5% of the entire world's population? Because I don't know what it adds to your argument, or what it adds to your argument about Miriam Adelson being able to give $300 million to Donald Trump and commit to giving another $300 million to get her way, and we end up in a war with Iran.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a valid point. I do think, though, that the issue is broader than just Netanyahu.
Oh, maybe, by the way, obviously Netanyahu has a base within Israel, within the Jewish community here in the United States, with Jared Kushner.
We're getting there.
You know what I mean? Jared Kushner, who is unelected, not a member of our government, is having as more control over the direction of the everyday lives of American people right now than anybody that I know of. And meanwhile, all he's doing is building a $6 billion private equity fund with the people he is negotiating for. And I always say, look who's paying him, and wondering whose interest that he is advancing. He's getting paid by the Saudis, he's getting paid by the Emiratis, he's getting paid by the Qataris, he's getting paid. Go down the list. And for some reason, he is in control, along with Steve Witkoff, who is also not elected by anybody, of deciding whether or not the Straits of Hormuz are going to open up, and whether or not our gas prices are going to go down. It may not matter to the three of us necessarily, an extra dollar, 60 cents or 85 cents. But you know what? To 85% of the people that live in America, it means it's the difference between whether or not they're going to be able to pay rent, whether or not you're going to be able to actually put the gas in your car in Montana to drive to your job on the, on the ranch.
Well, and here's what I'll say to you, and this is something kind of why I want to do this interview, is emphasize the message that as far as Jews are concerned in general, I think that it's the same standard that applies to everybody, which is as long as you're patriotic, as long as you believe Americans should be put first by their government, I have no problem at all. And I think that everybody in the country should be treated with dignity and respect and have their civil rights. It's just this acute problem of these people, like you mentioned, like Larry Ellison and Miriam Adelson and Jared Kushner, they're putting some other country before the interest of our own. And that, in principle, is what I have a problem with.
Yeah, it's the diaspora, right? It's not even just the diaspora in of itself, but it's the function of what the diaspora does, especially here in America. Okay, so you have like the Ellisons, you have those who are in media like Shapiro and like Batya Sargon or whatever her name is. And the issue is the fact that what they do with the majority of their push, their influence, their money, their power, is that they try to extract resources in any way, shape, or form, whether it be even in sentiment, like in terms of consent, like from the American people to go fight their war in Iran, or whether it literally be in terms of like literal dollar amounts, like in aid packages or in other kind of connections like that too. And like that's kind of like the top down effect in the most part. Then you have from the ground up effect. That's the other prong to this. There's two kind of major prongs. And the ground effect prong is the fact that they have subverted large portions of Protestantism, just outright lying in terms of what the promise to Abraham is. And in turn, basically turning many of these evangelical churches into massive support centers for the Israeli cause, into evangelical Zionists. And, a lot of this is with the Judeo-Christian, the kind of trying to merge them together and blend as best as possible. And I mean, Nick is right, but does anyone have really any kind of real hope that the Jewish diaspora is going to quit caring about Israel and the nation and the existence of Israel? I really highly doubt that. And I think that's the one thing that does make them ultimately monolithic is their shared supreme principle of Israel's existence and what that means in terms of how they win and how they move to ensure it stays in existence.
There's going to be some people who watch this and feel like, all right, no take backsies. And they might feel like you're just kind of trying to moderate, and that now that you've achieved your goal and got a lot of support, you're kind of moderating because your main aim has already been achieved, which is to sort of have a generational run and pop off. So now you're trying to kind of make your way more into the mainstream discourse, but that you'll just go back again into the same sort of reactionary rhetoric once you're back in a number one spot.
Well, I don't even think I'm moderating. And I even told our mutual friend, it's not even a moderation. It's not even an apology. It's clarifying because, all along I've been saying this message. It's just that the way that I'm saying it changes and evolves. And I also think how people respond to it changes as well. Because let's be honest, 10 years ago, there was a very different kind of conversation about Israel. You could not mention it in a negative or critical way without being utterly annihilated in politics. We all know that ever since October 7th, that's not the case anymore. So I think that there's sort of something reciprocal happening, which is that people are receiving me differently. And as someone that's growing older and more mature, I'm even representing myself differently. So I wouldn't even call it moderating, just clarifying. People are more receptive and I'm maybe better able to articulate it. And
meeting people where they are. And this has obviously been one thing, especially in looking through the window of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Many people have seen this and taken that, especially from like his eulogy. They took that as a sign of like Nick is like flip-flopping. But it's, if you ever to expect to actually reach out inside of the system, inside of the worldview of Nick, who wants to infiltrate the system and ultimately take over with Groyperism as like a long-term kind of theory, long-term strategy, well, then you do have to position yourself in a way that can be clipped and shown to people who aren't going to be immediately like freaking out. They're going like, oh my gosh. Because most people, and think about the left and people in general, normies, the indoctrination and brainwashing has gotten to the point it is so bad that people just reflexively react. Like they hear you talk about the N-word, they hear you talk about black people a certain way, they hear you talk about feminism or women, they hear you talk about transgenders or the LGBTQ. It's like they have this muscular reflex to automatically be opposed to no matter what you say. So it does invoke a sense where you have to have some level of where you can at least manipulate or assert your rhetoric in a way that can be heard by more people. And I think Nick is kind of stepping into that a bit more as he's obviously growing and being seen by a lot more people.
You think that's because you've kind of gotten older and been able to have like a longer career in media to reflect on your different changes in your perhaps brain chemistry and lifestyle?
That's a huge thing. I mean, I know it's 27. I have a very different mentality than I did when I was 20.
What's the main difference, you think?
Just more even keeled. I think you know too, it's like when you're 20, you're just like a maniac. And then you hit 25 and you're like, all right.
I was a maniac when I was 49. My brain chemistry has definitely changed in the last 7 years too. And I do believe that people can.
He's mogging in that photo.
And I'm not asking you to, and I'm not asking you to say things, but there are certain things that I just hope that you can hear without feeling attacked. That some of the things that you said, whether it's edgelording otherwise, are really hurtful, and then people completely turn off to the idea of being able to listen to you about anything, and then you get dug in more, and you're like, go fuck yourself, like, you can't take a joke kind of thing. And that's not what it is. It's not just wokeism. It's not. It's people being really, really hurt by it.
But most of the things that he's even referencing are things that are like years old. And it's like, if we have to be able to move away from this idea that like something someone said like 25 years ago is somehow a good representation of who they are now. Now, for some people that might be true, but hanging over their head just doesn't hold much weight. Now, if it was like said like a year ago, said like last month, like that's indifferent entirely. And so much of this is kind of even omitting, maybe Nick's kind of recent shift, if you will.
And I accept your apology for all of the mean things you said about me.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm on my apology tour. Is that the one thing you did say? You said I was a degenerate crackhead. The problem with that, not you.
Me?
Yeah. And
I also said you were cool, though.
Yeah, no, by the way, you said a degenerate crackhead.
But you're cool, degenerate crackhead.
Because I was a degenerate crackhead. It's true.
Now you're sober.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. You also said that you've never drank before.
Right. Yeah, I've never had a drink. Never done drugs.
That's because you grew up, with me. You're like, don't be that guy.
I grew up with you too, and I'm just doing.
Yeah. You're not as smart as he is. My brother never drank.
Dude, that's
My dad.
crazy.
I was going to ask you, Nick, what kind of prompted your choice?
Bro, we went for the throat at the end.
Never drank.
Well, a big part of it is I had a lot of addiction in my family. My grandfather was an alcoholic, committed suicide. Uncle died from an overdose from crack cocaine. My mom, two of her uncles, heroin addicts for their entire lives. And it just devastated my family, devastated both of my parents. And so I know I have that addictive personality and probably have the genetics for it. And not only that, but I like being rational. I like having my
Nick
sober
smokes crack,
mind. I
confirmed?
think that's actually a sacred thing. To have unimpaired reason. So the thought of losing control and even being tempted to get into, worse things, I just thought it's just not worth the risk. So it's just never for me.
Well, how much, by the way, sorry, do we have time? Yeah. Is it, how much do you
I know,
think
he must have lied about the fight, or he really exaggerated.
Warped, not just your generation, but everybody. Because I have this theory that there was this thing that broke for us with COVID. And that nobody's really come to terms with how traumatic that was for everyone.
And especially for the younger generations. I think severely less for the older generations, but for the younger people, missing the graduations, missing critical years in school. That's when the socialization happens. That's when you learn to get along. And so you think about how this generation is going to grow up having 2 to 3 lost years. No sports, no school, no extracurriculars, vacations. It's devastating. And we already had a problem with that isolation, social dislocation, loneliness. I can't even imagine. So it's going to be devastating, I think. But that's a lockdown.
So maybe if you're watching this video after this, put your phone or computer away, go outside, make a friend, just do anything but scroll to the next video. Back in the day during Nickelodeon,
Bro was just hitting random filters through CapCut when he was editing this.
We need like 1 day a week where it's mandated in a tech oligarch sense that no one can go on their phone or use the computer.
Man, I would love that. I mean, that's one thing. Is if we could, the one thing we could all agree on. The way I say it now is you're all carrying around a bag of heroin in your pocket. Everybody is, and it's probably even more dangerous in some ways.
Would either of you guys ever run for office?
Are you asking me for real?
Yeah.
No. I think that politics, the way that my dad engaged in it, and that I'm obviously incredibly biased, is an incredibly noble thing. But that's not It's not.
Well, your dad was racist,
in
so.
terms of what I want to do. I want to reach. My whole thing is that forget all of this. I want to reach 1 million people in addiction. I think one of the biggest things about addiction, and one of the reasons why it it continues to be this, epidemic, is that we don't talk about it.
I do forget that. That's one thing to also keep in mind too. Like, especially for anybody who knows or has anyone that's an addict that's in their family, or like has like a junkie, or somebody's even a former addict. Like, that there's like just certain damage that has been done to their brain pathways, which turns into like the way they speak and think, and so it can at times be limited. I'm somebody who grew up with many people in my family who had afflictions like that, and you just know they're not the same person they used to be.
Is that you don't even talk about it around your dinner table, and what you realize, if you're coming from my particular unique situation, is that everybody comes to me and they tell me their story, and sharing that is like, breaks that cycle of shame. And so I want to reach 1 million people in addiction.
Nick, would you ever run for office?
I don't know if he published it yet or not.
Just because I don't think you can fully be authentic when you're running for office, because
we do a little leaking here.
It's a different role. And I think my role, they say, according to the Overton window idea, they say that if you want to change people's opinions and what they consider acceptable, you kind of have to be the first to the punch and maybe
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that, brother.
Or evil or whatever in order to promote your view. And so that just doesn't lend itself to that kind of politics. So I think to protect my own integrity and authenticity of the message, I have to not run for office.
See what we just did? We just made probably the entire audience happy. One half is glad I'm not running. The other half is really glad he's not running.
Well, if not you guys, then, is there any candidate or prospective candidate that you feel like could run in 2028 that would, have a fair shot that y'all support?
Nobody in particular for me. Honestly, I haven't really been too impressed with who's come out of the Republican Party.
Dang.
So I'm hoping they'll just be somebody we haven't heard of, somebody maybe that hasn't been in office before.
He's voting for Gavin Newsom.
That's right, yeah. Well, if it's Newsom and Vance, I'd certainly think about it.
Yeah.
How about you? Anybody that, it's a twinkle in your eye?
No, I think that there are a lot of people. I mean, I know that you think that you're going to laugh at me, but I personally like Gavin Newsom a lot. I think that he's authentic in those beliefs, whether you agree with them or not. Thomas Massey's
the Newsom Hunter ticket
relates to
I'm in.
The Epstein files was incredibly courageous, and that's why he's not going to be a congressman anymore. But that's why he could potentially make a really strong national candidate.
And you guys think America will exist in a post-Epstein capture freeway?
Will America exist?
Yeah, will America survive the current power structure's stranglehold on the media, the political system, and all public affairs?
I don't know. I think AI is going to really be transformative. It's interesting. Nobody seems to be talking about that.
Transformative in what sense? Like for bad?
Concentration of power. That's the single biggest. And you know what? I'm actually on the liberal side on this with Anthropic over the, let's say, because there's this battle between these effective altruists, effective accelerationists, and
For those who might not have seen it or been privy to it, Anthropic, I could be wrong about this, but I'm 99% sure I'm right. Anthropic went along with the Pope when he gave his encyclical about AI, where Anthropic themselves were adding on to what the Pope was saying, also arguing against the extreme kind of unregulated push for AI, that there needs to be stronger kind of monitoring done and put in place of it, because otherwise it may lead us into a rough place, much like what they're saying here right now. And I agree, I'm on the same side. Like, I do think AI needs to have a stronger arm to it than what's going on right now.
I really am nervous about what's going to happen, especially in the next 4 years, because they're racing towards this artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence, and that, without a doubt, is going to be the single biggest influence on the country. And so I'm really worried about that.
And what about that?
Thank you, Smelly.
Is it surveillance?
It's the concentration of power in the hands of whoever controls it. Whichever firm is the one to develop ASI, that could confer dictatorial-like powers upon the CEO of that company. So whether that's Sam Altman or it's Dario, if the artificial intelligence is aligned with its creator, that person will become the most powerful person in the history of mankind.
It's almost an inherent truth, in my opinion, what he just said, is that the greatest leap in human evolution is going to happen within our lifetimes. AGI, let alone super intelligence is everything that we think about the way in which we exist in the world completely changes. And I don't think that that's in any way hyperbole. And if you listen to the people that are developing these technologies right now, they are the most alarmist. And now, by the way, I think that there's an enormous possibility for incredibly beneficial things to society, like being able to cure cancer.
Good to see you, Mello.
This one thing, everything that AI is built on is ours, belongs to you, and you, and you, all the way back through the human civilization. That's what they're stealing from us, and they're putting it into the hands of literally a handful of people. All of that human knowledge, and the value that comes from it. And I think that that's ours. So any AI that is developed, particularly that goes to HEE, should be it should be communal. It should be shared, in the not just the beneficial offshoots of it, but the actual money of it should be shared.
What's up, Capo?
I totally agree with that. I think it's like nuclear bombs, but it's also a commodity at the same time.
Sorry to hear that, man.
Potential, the economic potential. I think that's going to be the biggest thing, and I hope on some level that liberals win that argument, because what Trump is doing with the Pentagon, Anthropic, and OpenAI, the way they're handling it is so reckless and sloppy and just honestly unbelievable. So
Especially there was a little bit hostile.
some adults in the room on that.
I agree.
one.
Well, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate you guys for coming. You guys have any final questions you want to ask to each other, or maybe a message you want to give to the American people?
I still believe in America, and I truly believe in these conversations. And I think everyone that's watching would think that I would not want to sit down with Nick. And this, I guess, what I'm getting at with you is that I hope you see the humanity in me, and so when the way that you talk in the future takes that into consideration. And what I'll do is I'll see the humanity in you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a great conversation, and I don't
think Bro cares much about his hygiene.
Together on the things that
just
we
by
agree
judging
on,
from his
which is,
appearance.
for example, that we love the country. We both believe in America. We both want the country to succeed, and I like what you said, that we see the fundamental humanity in each other. And I think that, especially in the events of the last year, the killing of Charlie Kirk, you realize that's actually not something that people on both sides share. I think there's people on the right and the left that don't see the humanity in the other side. And so maybe that's the new consensus, or that's where we can come together, is on the basis that, we disagree on fundamental issues, and even sometimes
She put a
heated,
sticker over it.
yell at
That's
each
funny.
other, but that we do ultimately want the best for each other. We love each other. We want the country to succeed. And I think that's a starting point for any solution and any conversation.
All right, American brothers, thank you guys so much for your time.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Bro, sweating.
Good job, guys.
Channel 5 live worldwide, Hollywood and Vine.
Okay, well, that is the interview. That is the Hunter Biden and Nick Fuentes interview. Brought to you by Channel 5. I believe the guy's name is Andrew Callaghan, who even knows. As far as I understand, that's the entirety of it, the full interview so far. And again, for those who maybe missed a portion of it, you can still find it on X, as far as what I'm seeing here, from Groyper Quant. That is Groyper_Quant. And shout out, and of course the Groypers are here with the leaking it out all over the timeline. So I do appreciate everybody who made it here. Thank you greatly. Obviously, make sure you smash the like button. I will stick around for a little bit, just kind of gauge your guys' thoughts of this. I guess we can do a little poll here, get an idea of what everybody thinks of this. Maybe do a basic one. We'll start a poll. Just do overall. I guess to do overall thoughts. Good versus bad. I kind of like that a lot. The reason why I guess I like less of the other ones is because they're getting very repetitive. There was how many times did everybody want to hear the background of Cassie Dillon and all of that, over and over and over again? And it's good for people who didn't know, but for me who already knew, it's like, man, it's like, this it's kind of boring. We're not touching on anything. It's, what do you think about Hitler for like the 10th millionth time? Let's see, overall thoughts, good, bad. We'll do a basic one first. I'll send that in there. We'll see what people think about this. Yeah, an hour and a half long clip. Yeah, there was just an hour and a half long clip, dude. It was, it wasn't anything. Yeah. Yeah, like I'm surely there's a second half that's another hour and a half long. But the opposition, I enjoyed it. I want to see Nick in more of these scenarios where instead of us going at like the right wing, which still we need to do, and it still is like probably the primary principle here. It's also cool and good to see him actually engaging with like the left wing. Because so much of like what really has been, driven a lot of what Nick is going at the right wing, the establishment right wing, for what it is, for the Israeli involvement inside of that. Of course, there's no problem to me. I made sure to turn off the monetization, everything too, so we weren't gonna get like hit or anything during the middle of that. And also, I just would feel bad just naturally by like monetizing a stream of a content of a guy who's like still got it stuck behind a paywall. But again, the paywall, it does what it does, I guess. I mean, he probably still made a good amount of money off it for everybody who wanted to get in there early and clip it. But yeah, it looks like for overall, most people are finding it enjoyable. Seems to be. Let me move this a little bit, I guess, so I can see it better. But yeah, good at 81%. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it pretty thoroughly. The only other one I can even think of that maybe I liked close to this would have been the one with like Dave Smith from, I believe that was last year actually. The Candace Owens one was like decently okay, because there was a bit of back and forth in there too. But like for a lot of them, they were basic. Like the Sean Kelly one I thought was a little basic. The Bradley Martin one I thought was a little basic. Yeah, the Tyson Hockley one, I'm gonna be honest, I couldn't even bother to watch. Realistically, I didn't really care to even bother to click on that or want to go watch it. Oh, that is huge. Huge. Thank you greatly, Mr. Caleb Camarillo, for the 50 bomb on the super chats. Thank you. I will post let me bring this. Where is this at? I turned some of the sounds off on the TTS so it wouldn't be so like obnoxious. But I'll turn it back up again. But yeah, W chat, I want to say thank you greatly for everybody who was here. Maybe many people probably are here for the first time or never heard of me before. But yes, I go by Atlas Thugged. I am a groiper, and I do appreciate and enjoy Nick Fuentes a lot. And I've been doing YouTube for a little while, you could say. I just got here actually. I just got here yesterday on the rise. But I do appreciate seeing all the people in here. And so it wasn't what I expected for the hype for what it was, given that the trailer, but I still think it was pretty solid. I guess I would give it I'd give it anywhere between a 7 and an 8. I think the middle portions, there was a lot of good stuff in there. The beginning, the middle, and then at the end, it really kind of died off a little bit. Hunter was kind of repeating himself. And I think some of that could also be attributed to the fact that he is probably an addict. He probably doesn't have a robust way of, kind of describing these problems. But you can also just see the sheer like shallowness of his thought processes as well, especially referencing like the civil rights era. And then also when he brings up Israel, going to like, his history of Israel is like, well, as far back as you can think with Jimmy Carter. And it's like, but is that it though? They didn't get too deep into it, but it's like, is that it though? Is that, do you not really know the history there, or are you like avoiding it? Because that's also kind of another slight there, which is, imagine you're going to say, like, you're going to talk to Nick and be like, the way you address these issues is like harsh. And then you ask him and you go, okay, well, what was the history? What was the history then to Israel? What was it? What was our involvement in them getting formed? And it's like, so if you have no credibility here and you can acknowledge that you maybe don't understand or don't know, then who are you to even enter into the conversation to posit yourself as someone who should be telling someone else who does know that they should talk less about it or talk about it in a certain way? It's like, bro, you just got here. Like, where you're listening to the guy who made the JQ go mainstream in 2025. Like, give a little bit of credibility to Nick here on this. Mussolinian says, you guys missed the Atlas naked streams. That's how I got my name thugged. This is true. I did used to stream entirely nude. I did it at the Pride parades. They loved me there. That's how I got started. Yeah, 400 years of slavery, bro. Yeah, that part was a little blah. I don't think anybody wants to hear about that. And I mean, and think about that too. Like, one thing I think they could have done a bit better job of was actually going into maybe some of the stronger, not even stronger, but some of the more maybe just a broader conversation over like all the reasons why white America is like in the position now where they just don't care about like the Holocaust. They don't care about hearing about 400 years of slavery, because to most people, it's like, bro, like I have my own problems. Like, and not only do I have my own problems, I think most people probably in this chat can recognize, like, for the vast majority of the last 10, 15, 20 years, the social angst and the social, like the systematic kind of, I guess, oppression, if you wouldn't even call it that, has been against white people. It has been directed towards white people, making them, feel guilty, talking about white privilege. You look at all the, obviously, the interracial stuff aimed at, both at white people and other people too. But it's you got to even think about it in terms of economic senses as well. I think the probably the best analogy to use here would be like, think of like The Walking Dead or any kind of like post-apocalyptic scenario where, when you're struggling for food, right? You're struggling and you're fighting for food, and you need in any way, shape, or form, like you're just struggling, and someone comes to you and they're like, oh, but what about me? It's like, bro, like I'm doing everything I can to ensure I have enough money to pay my bills every 2 weeks. Like, miss me entirely with what your problems are. It's like I can't even think about your problems because I'm forgetting more problems than I can remember to fix. And so I think to even miss that, the economic portion of it is going to be major too, and especially going into 2028 as well. This is also going to be another huge portion to pay attention to, is the economics. Is going to be the, who's going to be talking about UBI. And whatever your disagreement is with it, like, that's fine. But just understand that as long as the system operates in this basis where everybody gets a vote, no matter who they are, no matter what race or gender, whatever, and we know the average person, for one, is dumb. The average person is retarded. Let's just be honest. And secondarily, most people are going to, especially in this current era, if there's an offering of some kind of UBI or STEMI or anything in that vein, most people, most center left people, most normie people are going to go for it, right? They're gonna say this straight up, like of course I'm going to vote for someone who's going to give me an extra $1,000 a month. They're not even going to think about it. They may understand the deeper economic, arguments against it, which is, eventually it would equalize, and it's not going to mean much at that point. But in terms of like healthcare, in terms of like the AI, especially if somebody even working in these positions, are they working near AI, or they just have a general fear of AI? And you probably see it on the timeline as well too, pretty often, just how often you see these people who are irritated and angry that, this game used AI in its art, or this poster was made with AI in this one portion. And you see how, like, the left wing especially is like this. I think it's a left wing issue. Maybe I could be wrong about that, but it seems like there's a lot of people who are on the left are like severely irritated, and they get angry for the usage of AI. They want real artists to get paid. They want real artists to be credited, which I don't even really think that would come down to a left versus right thing. But it ultimately will be if Vance becomes the figurehead for the right wing, because Vance is going to be, Vance is essentially married to Palantir. And with Palantir for what it is, if Vance gets in, as this relationship stays, well, you can guarantee, you can bet on it now, that Palantir will be given excessive amounts of defensive contracts and will ultimately get it further and higher up into the administration, into government. And it's more than likely what's going to be attached to things like the flock camera. And this is what the purpose of what Palantir is, and the reason why AI, so much of it's coming in, is because, the government just, you go back to just a few years ago, the government had all these cameras, the government had all this data, all these like massive amounts of, whether it be like immigration data, or whether it just be typical government data, whether it be like COVID data, supply chain data, things like that. What Palantir and the AI did was it stepped in and it said, okay, well, your biggest problem is that you have all this data, but the biggest problem is that you don't have efficient ways to sort through it and categorize things and flag things. And that's what the AI has become. That's what the AI does. The AI actually can carry and marry the information to the places it needs to go and make better sense of it. Not maybe better sense of it if you were to look at it yourself, but can do it in a way that is so much more efficient in terms of time. And obviously you need to double check these things, but that's the value of what Palantir and these other AI systems are, and why they are being brought in, especially to some of the highest levels in government. And when you think about how it's talked about in terms of, I believe it was Palantir's child program, which was called Gotham. I do believe it's called Gotham. And Gotham is what was used in Europe. You know, if anybody can remember when Alex Karp was on screen on TV, basically bragging about the fact that they quelled the far right in Europe. Well, what were they using? Well, it was Gotham, which is an extension of Palantir. I don't know if it was considered like a sister program or if it was considered like a derivative program of Palantir, but it was under the wing of overall Palantir systems. And you even look at like, you know, how Israel is using things like Daddy's Home. There's also one that's called The Gospel. Now, I don't think those are explicitly Palantir, but it just goes to show you that like it's already being used, not even just being used, but it's like it's being installed and it's operational and functional. You know, we're well past like the schematic stage where we're now fully into the territory of these things being implemented and being utilized at, you know, at mass, at scale. So says AI, is it okay to have an AI waifu? No. The answer to that is no. Or you will end up like Matt Nuclear. Everybody with an AI waifu will end up like Matt Nuclear. That's the last thing that you want to be. AI will eventually end OnlyFans. It might be on that pathway, depending on how well it goes. I've been seeing some crazy videos, but again, you know, how much can you believe what you see on the internet? There's always got to be that healthy, you know, grain of salt that you take with everything. Kevin 11 says that last night the Shiloh Hendrix was found guilty for insulting the nun. I did see that. I was actually going to cover that before I saw that the interview had been dropped. Yeah, the Shiloh Hendrix things, which we can move to that actually. Yeah, everybody calls me AI. They say my voice is AI. They say my setup is AI. I am AI. We're all AI actually. Everyone here is AI. But yeah, the Shiloh Hendrix trial outcome was, you know, it's kind of surprising even despite the social. The entire social space, you know, obviously we're in a bit, the Overton window has moved, but understand that where the trial occurred, it was in Minnesota, you know, and if there's any kind of singular state you could point to that has been maybe wholeheartedly captured by the left wing, that has been captured by Somalians and has been captured by this kind of fraudulent, like over-exerting force of racialized, you know, left-wing racialized politics, it would be Minnesota. And, you know, unfortunately, I believe there was more women on the jury than there was men. I think that didn't help Shiloh Hendrix at all. But, you know, she was originally charged for 3 different counts of misdemeanor charges, all of disorderly conduct. It got reduced down to 2. You know, there's two counts. And then eventually there was a split verdict. The one against the child, so there was the misdemeanor charge against the child, that was ruled not guilty. But it was the verdict of the misdemeanor charge against the videographer, which I'm not even going to begin to try to remember what his name is. Okay, Somalian 1 and Somalian 2. So he was found guilty on that secondary charge against the videographer, which, get this, the videographer wasn't even there at trial. He didn't testify. He wasn't involved. And you guys know why? Because he fled to Somalia. So the whole reason why we even got this court case, this trial, was because of this Somalian guy who got pissed off at her reacting to the 9-year-old wearing an ankle monitor because he won't stop running off. You can find the quote in the paper. And what ends up happening? Well, they lie about the age. So on one of the GoFundMes, it's like 5-year-old kid. He wasn't 5, he was 9. But understand, a 9-year-old who has to wear an ankle monitor because he's notoriously known for running off and not following rules. He steals, and it was an applesauce pouch, so he steals an applesauce pouch out of this woman's diaper bag, Shiloh Hendrix's diaper bag. And before he can get away with it, he gets caught. Shiloh Hendrix sees it, and she drops the hard R, allegedly. Now, this isn't on camera, and I don't even know if she owned up to it or said it didn't happen, but regardless, that's the claim. So allegedly she says that, and we're watching as she's now serving, you know, it's something to like $1,000 fine, or she may get 90 days in jail. We don't know because I don't think the sentencing has occurred. When the court did adjourn, it was like super late at night. I do have a video we can watch of the lawyer talking about how pissed he was in the aftermath that I watched early this morning. And he seemed kind of like a great guy, to be honest with you. I thought he did a solid job in the kind of way that he was breaking down the court case. And, you know, you even go back a little bit, right? Like the guy who was the videographer in this is like, he's trying to defend this 9-year-old like thief. But the crazy thing is that the guy who recorded is at a park with kids, but he's not even the father of the kid who he's supposedly standing up for. Hey, I appreciate the 5 gifted memberships. Thank you greatly, Mr. World Champion. So he's not even the father of the kid who he's supposedly standing up for, that he's recording this video. He's challenging the woman to drop the hard R again, which she does. And his background is that he is a literal child rapist who is like let off, and I'm not even joking you. The quote is, "In the interest of justice." And then there was some other charges there too. I think it was like even an earlier charge, like in 2020 or 2022. It was something like he was with somebody who, like, either he was the one that held people at knife point, or he was the one that threw something at somebody that was considered like a deadly weapon. And guess what he got for it? A $200 fine. So not only is he let off in one scenario for the interest of justice, but in the other scenario where he commits assault with a deadly weapon while his protagonist, his friend, his cohort, is holding people at knife point to keep them away from the fight, he gets like a $200 fine, slaps on the wrist. Shiloh Hendrix, though, is like facing 90 days in jail and a $1,000 fine. And let's not forget, she had her social security number doxxed. She had her address doxxed. She had her phone number doxxed. And they're trying to do everything in their power to destroy her life. Not to mention that the guy, the videographer, not the videographer, I think it was the father. So the videographer had a Give, Send, Go or GoFundMe, and that reached like 50K. But then the father of the child, who lied to the police. He has 2 different stories. So like he gets interviewed by the police. He has one story. Then he testifies in front of the court. That's another story. But he has and get this, an NAACP backed GoFundMe. He gets $400,000. So the father, who didn't even record anything, and by all accounts, I didn't even think he was there when it happened, makes $400,000 because the woman responded to his son stealing from her diaper bag with the hard R. That earned him $400K. Now, the decent part is that Shiloh Hendrix did ultimately make, she ended up with like $800,000 or $900,000 and was able to move away. But just like, golden age, right? Because why? You look at this kangaroo case, and then you also have to like let's not forget, Anthony Fauci is a free man. They're like throwing everything they possibly can between all the race hustlers on the black and the Somalian side. But we can't even get the guy who lied about COVID and all of his other added insinuations during that time. We can't even get it started. There's no trial. We're not even starting with him. And forget about him. Think about all the other people. Like, obviously we just watched Hunter Biden, like the open investigation. Think about, all this other stuff that we're just not getting. But, Shiloh Hendrix, a white woman in Minnesota, dared to in a heated moment while she's literally being stolen from, dared to utter the no word. And the thing is, you have to understand this too, is like, blasphemy laws, it is not a question of what if or not there will be blasphemy laws in this country. It's a matter of which. So we used to be in a country where those blasphemy laws meant to the extent of like, you cannot blaspheme the Lord Jesus Christ. You can't do things that are outright blasphemous. Well, now this country worships race. It worships black people. It worships non-white people. And so what the blasphemy has now become is, if you dare utter the hard R, it doesn't matter if it's by all reason, you throw out all logic, they will come for you, and they will demand that you deserve to be tried for your crimes. That's what the blasphemy law is in this country now. And it's on the left and the right. The left wing majoritively so, but the right wing can't quit stumbling over itself to be the first person to come over to you and say, "Oh, I'm one of the good ones. Oh, no, I'm not racist, I swear." And it's just sad. A lot of it's the blind leading the blind, but that's what the religion of this country is. The religion of America is blacks and Jews. Like, that's what the religion is in this nation. And I think people can either recognize it for what it is, or they believe in it themselves. But no more of this people just pretending like it's not happening or not a major part of this. And especially when you look at somebody like Tucker Carlson, who makes arguments, and this was like yesterday on the Stephen A. Smith show, where he's making the Marxian arguments that, religion and culture and race just have nothing to do with all the problems that are happening in our country. It's a class warfare problem. And it's like, dude, it is communism, it is Marxian, it is Marxist to boil everything down and say that none of these other elements have any effect at all. They have no basis in determining what people think, their provisions, what they're against. But it's just how much money someone has, whether you're a millionaire, a billionaire, or 100K or less. Like, that's not reality. That's not what makes and breaks like what actual reality is. It's actually just kind of sad to see that. But obviously Tucker's going to be doing that because I don't think Tucker was one of us or is on our side in the first place. He's obviously a CIA spook. I think he is someone who's doing everything in their power to basically run a containment operation for everybody who is kind of maybe falling away from Nick Fuentes. But I won't rant too much. I will go to this video here because I have it on log right here. This is the lawyer from the Shiloh Hendrix trial outcome. Let me make sure I can find it here. It's at the very end, I do believe, but I'll pull it up right here. This is it. So it's like an 8 or 9 minute video of the lawyer afterwards. And he's pissed. I mean, and the part of the reason they're pissed is because it was like, they had like 8 or 9 hours of deliberations. He didn't leave the court until it was like 11 at night, which is atypical, by the way. And I do believe he mentions that. Let me go ahead and I'm going to make this a bit smaller so it doesn't block too much of the screen. Pull it down again like this. Probably about perfect. All right, here it is.
What's your reaction to the verdict today?
I think it's pathetic. I think it's sad. I think it's sick. I think shocked. I've never had a trial where they keep people. This is a misdemeanor, by the way, till 10:30 at night. Never even heard of that one before. Most courts, most counties, what they do is around 4:30, 5 o'clock is they say, okay, we're going to send the jurors home. They got kids, they got families, they got things to do. No, we're keeping them. I've never heard of that before. So that alone, I know this is a thing, I guess, Olmsted County, they do this. I thought that was bizarre. But the verdict itself, let's make something clear here. Let's make something very clear. She's acquitted, not guilty, right? Not guilty with the child. The state reads a 5-minute victim impact statement about the child? She was acquitted about the child. She's convicted on the count involving the cameraman, who they never called to testify. Keep this in mind. They never called the cameraman to testify. This judge...
No, he doesn't say it, but again, the reason why they don't call the cameraman is because he's literally not even in the country.
...prohibited us from telling the jury that Shire Jamali had a GoFundMe page, $340,000. He testified that it was done in May last year, done.
So the person who testified about this is the father. So it was the father who didn't record it, who testified, which kind of is a little bit confusing if you're not familiar with the story.
That's not true. There's a link on the bottom of the page that goes to another open account. My investigator hit the link last night, donated $10. It's open. You can.
From what I understand, he just left.
Now. You can donate right now to Shire
per Tom Hennessy
GoFund page right now. It's open. He testified under oath and perjured himself. He perjured himself over and over and over and over again. This was without any stretch of the imagination. It was like I was fighting the prosecutor and the judge. It was like I'm taking on 2 parties at the same time. The judge and the prosecutor. It was very bizarre. Very bizarre. GoFundMe. Huge, worldwide, giant. It's like Google, right? This is so big. My investigator was going to testify that this page with Shire Jamali's name on it. 5-year-old. The kid's 9. 5-year-old. $340,000 he raised. The judge would not let me show it to a jury. Sorry. The judge would not let me show it to the jury. Okay? And if you go through any of you right now can go online right now. And the judge, like, you can't authenticate this. You can't lay foundation. This prosecutor is telling the judge, oh, how do we know this is real? How do we know this is real? So anyone can make this up. You can go online right now, today, right now. Go on that page, unless they run and take it down. Scroll down. He has an open GoFundMe. He said on the stand he does not. He lied and lied and lied and lied. This entire thing's a shakedown. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. The prosecutor should be ashamed of himself. The judge should be ashamed of herself. I had a battle here for 4 days on a stupid misdemeanor disorderly conduct. This is nuts. This was crazy. 340,000. Nope. Can't.
Somebody said put him on the Supreme Court. I agree.
Show the jury. 5-year-old. The kid was 9. His name's on it. Can't authenticate it. Still open account. So we're going to appeal it. We will appeal it. We have so many appellate issues, I don't even know where to begin. Judges screaming at me during the trial. Judges interrupting me every time I want to make a record. Judge says to me, Mr. Corrales, you keep wanting to make a record after I rule. This is crazy. Most rulings during a trial by a judge are made during the trial. And then when you take a break, you make a record, right? You take a break, you make a record. I kept asking. If you're in there and you watch the trial, I kept asking, I need to make a record. I need to make a record. She'd get upset, run in the back. Get upset, run in the back. Your Honor, I need to make a record. It started piling up. All these objections started piling up. Your Honor.
And the reason why he needs to make a record is because while the trial is ongoing, he's actively building the case and all the things he's going to appeal on, which is what's obviously pissing off the judge, knowing that he's going to do everything in his power to obviously go at her in the trial itself.
I need to make a record. I need to make a record. She'd run in the back. I'm like, Judge, we got to make a record. This is insane. This isn't law. This is a circus. This is monkey court. This is nuts. Right? You make a record. The judge should come out and say, okay, I made my ruling, Mr. Corrales, what is your record you like to make? I try to make a record. She interrupts me from the beginning, right from the start. Every time I tried to make a record, she interrupts me. Every single time. Every single time. I'm like, Your Honor, I'm trying to make a record. That's what we do as lawyers, right? I don't know if the lay people or the people in the community understand this. The way trials work is judges make rulings during trial. We don't want to interrupt the trial to make a record every time someone objects and there's a ruling. So when there's a break or you go to lunch or at the end of the day, you make a record.
He does look like the Vance meme, doesn't he?
If you're in there, you heard it. She'd talk over me. She'd interrupt me. Wouldn't let me make a record. Over and over and over again. Why? She didn't want anybody to hear what? They didn't disclose the name of Shire Jamali until Monday. The first day of trial. No, I'm not done. Sorry. Until the first day of trial, they didn't even disclose his name. Think about that. A jury trial in the United States of America. I didn't get the name until Monday. When we started the trial,
had aura.
until Monday. And then my investigators do a record check. Then we uncover, oh my God, he's got this GoFundMe. $340,000.
Mr. Corrales, a couple of things.
Sure.
According to the court, you agreed to those free trial terms about not getting the witnesses beforehand and...
Did not agree to it. Here's the deal. I thought I was coming down here to try a free speech case. You all saw the video. I thought I was coming to Rochester to try a free speech case based on the video.
Right.
Then it took on an entirely different, it just turned. Right? Mr. Jamali takes the stand. Wouldn't answer any question I asked him. He sat there like this. I don't understand. He looked at his interpreter. I don't understand. Over and over and over again. When the prosecutor asked him a question, he had no problem through the interpreter understanding. Never had a problem understanding. Not one time.
Yeah, playing coy.
On the stand. Detective, did he ever have a tough time understanding you? Never had a tough time understanding him. Never had a tough time. Not one time did the detective have any problems understanding. You were in the jury room, or in the trial. You were in the courtroom. You're in the courtroom. He acted like he didn't understand any question I asked.
It's like you were there. You saw it happen.
It's like, huh? It went on and on and on. This is a fraud. This whole thing's a fraud. The cameraman. By the way, let's make something clear. They didn't convict him with the child. Your headlines could be about the child. No, they convicted her on the video with the cameraman. The disorderly conduct is about the cameraman. Right. And from what I understand about the cameraman, he has a GoFundMe. And his GoFundMe, his GoFundMe is he died. He has a GoFundMe that he died. Give money to the cameraman who died. And from what I understand, he's well alive. This whole thing is fucking bullshit.
Mr. Crow.
This is a fraud. This is a fraud upon the community.
Hey, there it is, man. There it is. I think there's another like a minute down here that he posted as well. It's like 30 seconds.
About the judge's warnings over contempt of court or any.
Sure, as she
sanctions.
screamed at me in front of the jury, that will be on appeal. Yeah. Judge's decorum screaming at a lawyer out loud in front of the jury. Yeah, I was concerned.
She claims you implied that
Dude, bro is heated, dude. I love it.
Say that? She said that. She said that. Yeah. Weird, right? She said that, not me.
Anything else you think we or people should know?
Do your job. Be better. Be better. Be more fair. Get rid of your woke shit. That's what I would say.
Man. Smoked him. Smoked him, he said. Well, you know, that kind of does it. I'm going to keep it short, so if anybody wants to watch it in the aftermath, they're not going to wonder why the interview is like 4 hours long or anything like that. Let me go ahead and switch camera views if I can. Let me just switch scenes here. I want to say, I appreciate it. Everybody who came and watched, everybody who subscribed, make sure you smash the like button or subscribe if you have not already, obviously. Many of you are probably new here, I would imagine, but I am a groiper. I am a Christian nationalist. I do go by the tag Atlas Thugged. I'm on both YouTube and on Kick. I'll be on Kick actually directly after this with a bit more of a chill stream. So feel free to follow me over there as well. Many of the chats have been flying through too. You feel free to join the Discord as well. We have a decent community. We got about 140 people on the Discord now. It has been growing. We would love to see you more in there. We obviously love and appreciate Nick. I'm out front about that. Obviously, I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but it is mine. So thank you greatly for all of that, all the support, all the gifted memberships as well. And yeah, that's what we're in the tune of. I do run the show Offensively Accurate, which you can see down here in the bottom left corner as well. I do Offensively Accurate basically as much as I can Monday through Friday. I try to be regular time around anywhere from between 6 to 7 to 8 o'clock. And then I do around a 2-hour show. And then we also do the Kick streams as well on the back end. We do gaming streams on the weekends. And we're trying to do our best to be somewhere between Asmongold and Nick Fuentes. That's at least my kind of view on this, being one step into politics, being one step into the culture, and hopefully trying to marry some more of this to the actual mainstream. Much like how Nick talked about as well, too. Putting yourself in a position to be able to be appealable to people who are across the aisle. Sometimes I crash out, though. I can't lie. People will never tell you, obviously, depending on the stories, like the Shiloh Hendrix stuff, too. But above all, I am a Christian. And even further than more than that, I am a Christian nationalist. Christ is king, above all, always has been, always will be. And yeah, so with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here on YouTube. For those who want to keep following and keep it going, make sure you do follow on Kick. It is the same tagline as well, just Atlas Thugged on Kick. So you can just do kick.com/Atlas Thugged. It should take you directly there. And appreciate seeing all you guys here. Yeah, for those who are late or maybe are still going through the stream, definitely take your time watching through it. I thought it was pretty decent. Hopefully I didn't talk too much over everything. I try to be reasonable about the pausing, if you will. But I appreciate that greatly. And also beyond the show, too, I also do regular edited videos, right? So a couple of the recent ones, the one I did was I did a little bit of the debunking, responding to all the claims that everyone is saying that Nick is Jewish. And I think before that, I took aim at Sneeko and put a compilation clip together through a lot of the back and forth that's going on. And we do some deep dives on people like Joe Kent or the Claremont Institute or Tom Cotton or Peter Thiel, all of that jazz. I try to be as versatile as I possibly can be. So with that being said, I do appreciate everybody who was here and everybody who stuck around too. It was nice to see the numbers jump up from what they have been. Most people from this channel could tell you I have been getting suppressed pretty heavily. And probably part of that is because I am a decent looking white male with a voice that would mog the closest person in the room, maybe outside of Barry White. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. I appreciate you all. Christ is king. And a message to the woman. If any of you are here, this is going to maybe make it angry you, but I can't leave the stream without saying it. Any woman over 150 pounds, you're getting shot from a cannon to Israel, no questions asked. And anyone between 125 and 150 pounds, this is your 90-day notice to lose the weight, or you too will be shot from a cannon to Israel. So with all that being said, I will see you guys on Kick in about 3 to 5 minutes. So peace out. Christ is king. Appreciate you all. It was a good stream.
Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.